we are back. Welcome again to Sonic Spirit Podcast, episode number 38.
Very lovely.
38.
Hi.
38. Not quite 40. It's still at 38. I did take your title, by the way.
You did?
I did. This episode is called The Beauty and the Beast of Bass.
Aww.
Which I thought was awesome.
It's great.
So we're going to do that. Recorded for Monday, January 25th, 2021. I am your host, the Platinum Viking that raises the mostest. I've got Julie Tew over here,
Right here.
to the side of me. How you doing, Julie?
I've never been better.
Hell yeah. We've got Seth Hill in the house, all the way from Alabama. We're going to get into that. No?
Clarksville, Mississippi.
Mississippi. So I think you are pretty much our first out-of-state guest from out-of-state that's here in studio.
Oh, lovely.
So that's a first. We broke that. It's Mississippi. So we've got Seth Hill, and this is a bass episode. It's bassified because you know what? It's all about that bass. That's right. So we're going to talk about bass. He's a good friend of mine. I'm very excited about that. And, of course, we're going to put him through the gauntlet of fire. I got new questions for you.
Oh, lovely. Nothing like being put on the spot.
Oh, yes. That's what it's about.
That's what they're for.
Right.
That's what it's about. All right, Julie, Tew, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, a slew of album releases, actually, so we'll hit the highlights on that and some really interesting figures. We're going to talk about Django Reinhardt and Leadbelly.
Oh, lovely.
And also how the B3 organ came about and what it did for music when that happened. And the time that Ozzy bit ahead off the bat.
Ooh.
So that would be great as well.
And didn't get COVID that time.
Not in the 80s, no.
Maybe rabies, but not COVID. All right, and we have Leo, I'm probably going to butcher the
Leo
last
Goff.
name. Goff? Okay, I was going to say that. I was going to be sure. Leo, thank you for joining us. And hello, Seth.
Mr. Goff is an absolute legend in the Memphis music scene.
Nice.
Countless albums and just as is my preference. He is an even more delightful human being than he is master musician. And those are the people I love hanging out with.
That's beautiful.
Oh, man. Dude, that's a sterling little pudding for you guys. Leo, hopefully I'll meet you soon going out to Memphis. We're playing Birmingham. We're not quite in Memphis, but we're going to try to get out of Memphis. We're going to try to get out in Memphis. Hit some Mississippi because I love playing New Orleans.
Oh, I.
So, and then heading out that way. So we'll have to make sure we hit that as well. All right, so we got Rewind the Music with Julie Tew. Got a couple things coming up for you. Of course, we're going to pause the music. This is all in the second half. After we talk to Seth, we got this entire other part. And we have a busy week. This is actually a busy week, so I'm going to run through stuff pretty dang quick. We're going to look back at the good and the not so good from the music performances of the Inaugural Day concert. Whether you swing one way or the other, we're going to actually just leave it to the music. We're going to look at who performed and you know, what those performances was. So
there were some
that'll be
great
very
acts that
cool.
night for sure.
I'm very excited
Some
about
really good
talking
talent to
that.
see.
Exactly. And we'll talk a little bit, of course, about Bon Jovi's performance. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. All right. And then we also have, this is interesting too. I wanted to bring this to you guys. It's a UK tribute band called Pearl Jam with 2 M's, who is getting a cease and desist letter and has also changed their name, according to Pearl Jam. So this is very interesting. We'll talk about what the case is, what's going on with that, what's kind of gone down, and keep you updated with that. And, of course, one of the things I love to do always is talk about new music because there's a lot of people putting a lot of things out. I'm very excited about this. I'm a big AC/DC fan. So we are putting out, this is the previously unreleased Lost Archives of Bon Scott with his first band.
Oh, spectacular.
Hell yeah. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about Children of Bodom's bassist, who's one of my favorite bassists of all time, Of course, we
And very
talked
good.
about losing Alexi earlier, but he has a new band. He has a whole new thing, and we're gonna talk about it.
Lovely.
It's very different, by the way, COB fans. All right. And then we have the Hate Club, which is kind of a new band. And they're putting out this basically a metalocalypse type of music video. It's gaining a bunch of ground. And yeah, so we're going to talk about that. And finally, of course, my Weezer fans, they have dropped the first song off of OK Human. We're going to talk about that too. And guess what? There's no guitar on it. It's all cello and strings.
Wow.
Yeah. So you guys have to stick around, of course. That's in the second half because the first half is all about Seth Hill. And hell yeah. All right. So we've got Leo, of course, telling he's run Boogie every Thursday nights during the COVID lockdown, and Eric Hughes bars. So I need to come out and hit some of those. I definitely will, my brother. We'll make sure I hit some of that stuff. I'll hit you up. We love Seth. I have to say, I'm trying to remember the first time I met you because I don't think it was NAMM, was it?
The very first time we actually saw one another face to face was the 2019 NAMM show.
It was NAMM. Okay. But we had contacted and connected beforehand. And I was like, this guy's got an impressive beard. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your beard, man. What do you do to it? How do you keep that up?
Honestly, as we said earlier, the beard and my whatever you would call a style, I guess, is merely trying to hide the ugly.
Oh no, no.
Oh no. I have to say, you showed up. You are classy, sir.
He's
Hats
very
off.
very sharp dressed.
I love sharp dressed man over here. Very classy. You always show up dressed to impress. So I appreciate that. It's amazing.
I love the old saying, if you are a professional, you treat your job like a profession. And dressing is certainly part of that.
It is. It is first impressions, right? So first impressions mean everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So if we don't get that first impression, you may not get a second chance. So that's definitely huge. So, but you also came up to a jam recently.
Yes, ma'am.
You helped me out. I appreciate that, man. You rocked. They were literally about to hire you on the spot. By the way, they were like, "We've never seen this," which I love, because you're my bass brother.
Aye.
So that's awesome. By the way, so I'm very excited about that. So you were in Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Born and raised here in Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, born not too terribly far, College Park.
Okay. Yeah.
So how'd you make your way out to Clarksdale?
Going out, I was invited to the International Blues Challenge in January of 2015. It was my first time going to Memphis, first time having an experience like that. And in all honesty, what I took away from that initial experience was that some people that are making it as professional musicians, it astounds me because they are maybe not the best musicians, but have some type of found themselves a niche to fit and make a career.
That's very true.
There were actually one instance is worth repeating, and Rum Boogie is by far my favorite bar in Memphis. I've spent more time there than
It's
any
a great
other.
name.
Great place.
It's a great place.
We had, which at the time I was working a day job and getting up at 5 every morning.
Ouch.
And so staying out until 2:30, 3 a.m.
Is near murder. Yeah, I know the feeling.
So we were having breakfast at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Rum Boogie, and they had some of the international acts booked.
Wait a minute. That's my schedule, by the way.
Well, I've become accustomed to it now. At the time, it was quite a jostle.
Yeah.
But they were having some of the international acts booked for doing 30-minute slots as the day went on, before the competition began at night. And when we got settled in and got our food ordered, and there was one gentleman from Australia doing just the most spectacular, extremely old school solo blues, just an acoustic guitar. He had the soles of his shoes to make a kick drum sound. It was just delightful.
Wow.
And he finished up, and they introduced a band, Leaf de Lou.
Okay.
Leaf has been so kind to me. He's a fantastic guitarist from the Netherlands, and it was the last time I ever will judge a band based on their appearance.
Right.
Because as they took the stage, just from how they were dressed, I thought, oh, this is going to be some kind of punk rock thing, and it's not what I needed this early in the day. But from the first bar, I just totally changed my tune. It was spectacular how they worked together as a group, and the sound was amazing. And they mentioned having an EP for sale, so I hopped up to go get it, and the lead singer started yodeling.
My favorite.
But in such a wonderful way that I froze and just stared. And it was a good 15 seconds before somebody hit me on the leg, and I was standing in front of an entire table. It was just really amazing.
That's awesome. I will say, even as up to basically almost 2 weeks ago, I've had, somebody where, they've come up after the show and they're like, "You're better than I thought based on what I saw initially." I couldn't even tell you how many times I've had that. Looks is everything, but I do wish that people definitely would wait for judgment, until after the music's played, because there's been so many times that I'm like, I don't know, I'm open to it. Let's see what happens, and they blow me away. So, for sure. And real quick, we have Jason. My glasses are totally a mess. Jason Barnes.
Oh,
Says Seth rocks.
Very kind man.
Thank you, Jason, for joining us. But yeah, so you're in Mississippi right now. So you have plans though. So what's kind of, where are you planning on going? I mean, we talked about a little bit about Nashville as a possibility. So.
Nashville never was my intention as a place to move and try to build a career, just because of the sheer volume of people. It is to music, or at least music in America, what film and television has Los Angeles, the draw.
It's very saturated, I would say, sometimes, yeah.
Right. And being as... Currently, I'm merely a gigging musician. Every dollar of my income has been playing live, which is why this last year has been particularly frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah.
But it has been a great blessing to meet so many musicians who are very welcoming into the fold, and I've made contacts in Nashville for not just playing, but also one of my biggest dreams is to work in lutherie. And to be able to maintain, repair, and ultimately build stringed instruments.
I've always thought that too. It seems like a Luther's life would just be, I don't know. I can't even imagine.
Well, it's from the ones that I've spoken to, it's very similar to a mechanic in the sense that something comes in, your responsibility is X, Y, and Z, and once it's done, it goes off and you don't have to worry about that one anymore.
Unless they break it.
True.
Well, then they'll bring it back.
Right.
So, yeah, no, y'all can have fun at that. I mean, I respect it. I will have to say a good luthier is like a diamond in the rough. Like there's a lot out there who do a good job, but like finding the one that really sets it how exactly you like it and does it every time, and then can fix some of these major problems without taking too long or costing you an arm and a leg. I think that's rare for sure, man.
Here in the Atlanta area, Mr. Jonathan Holland of
No, Jonathan Holland.
Holland Musical Instruments.
Do you know him?
He has helped me more than I can possibly say in getting me not only tuned in to how to set up an instrument that is comfortable for me to play,
Right.
but also in the ideas of modifying, and which,
Right.
because of my OCD, I've now designed a bass that currently only exists on paper and in my imagination. But
So let's let's talk about that, because I know you showed me some of the stuff earlier. I want to hear, what is your dream for this?
Because one day it will exist outside of your imagination, right? You're
very
gonna
true.
build it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what's your dream?
Tell
What
us
is
about
this?
it.
The bass that I have designed is using Stu Ham's Urge 2 as a bare bones blueprint, in that having 24 frets and having both a precision pickup as well as bridge and neck jazz pickups.
Okay.
The only thing that even exists in the realm of that currently is, and I bet you're very familiar with Mr. Rudy Sarzo.
Yes.
He has just, in the last couple of years, come out with a signature Spectre, and those pickups are from England that allow for either single coil, humbucking, or split coil, and that is very
versatile. Yeah.
a very versatile instrument. What I'm doing is also, and please forgive me, but it's also aesthetically pleasing. Those pickups, which the name escapes me. Anybody out there know?
Somebody chime in over here in the chat room. I'll read it out.
Are huge. They look like almost double soap bars. They're just enormous pickups. But also, I found, and this, I have to go back to my first experience at a blues jam here in Atlanta at the old Darwin's Burgers and Blues, a place that unfortunately no longer exists.
They
Sadly.
tried, man.
They
tried.
But the very first time I stepped foot on any jam stage,
now you talking about the Marietta, the
original one,
little house that they modified,
which is now a pretty decent coffee shop, actually.
Is it? Okay, I haven't been by there.
It is, but I miss Darwin's.
Yeah. I haven't been by there to check that. But yeah, no, there was something magical in that space. It was literally like, it wasn't much, but sometimes that was cool, you know?
It was just the feel of it, and the old piano in there and everything. And
yes.
It was definitely something to that.
But I was looked at by the man in charge. We had 2 guitars, bass, and drums. And the main cat let the secondary guitar take a lead, turned around, looked me eyeball to eyeball, and said, "What are you doing?" So I had to learn quite quickly the role of bass in a blues situation. My entire musical
it's very fluid.
My entire musical life had been playing with a pianist. I've still, to this day, never had any musical education, for which, for everyone out there watching, learn to read music. That is the most, it is as essential as learning to read and write your native language that you speak.
Well, I'll say, for learning the music, especially if you can read music and play it, that gives you a leg up on a lot of things. And a lot more opportunities to do things like plays, cruise ships, all sorts of, even orchestra, symphony, etc. It really opens up a lot for you. And I learned bass clef because I was a cello player initially. I did cello all my life and switched over to bass about 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And
I did not know that.
Like applying a instrument that's tuned in fourths versus an instrument tuned in fifths, being upside down, reversed, and in different tuning was very interesting. But I will say that because I can read bass clef and play it on the bass, that opened up a lot of stuff very early on, including wedding bands and jazz bands and plays. Played a lot of plays and stuff. So
I had the same experience, really, just on the other end of the register. I mean, my first real instrument was violin, so of course I had to learn how to read music.
Yeah.
Yes.
And translating that to guitar, I mean, luckily I had some education at home as far as piano and church music, and so I learned to read shape notes and how notes were stacked told me the chord, and obviously the bottom note usually named the chord unless it was a special case.
Yeah.
And I could always go from there.
Yeah.
But it
I will
opens
say-
doors to other instruments too, because if you can do that, you can play mandolin, you can play banjo, you can play
Right.
a lot of things.
Right. I will say, too, though, one of the things that lacked on my classical training was a basic theory as to chord structure and why are you playing these things.
Right.
So for me, that was my journey initially, was entirely theory-based. And going to AIM and really understanding the theory behind everything. But definitely recommend it if you can do it. It's out there.
And it's never too late.
Oh, right.
Right. I was started that whole thing playing bass at 35. So if anybody can do it, y'all can do it.
Well, to particularly highlight that point, it was such a privilege. I don't know if you're aware, but since this whole shutdown and all that nonsense has been, Steve Bailey has been making a public and completely free webinar on it's typically on Thursdays, but I was able to be a part of one. I say a part, I was in the chat room watching these heroes of bass, and I know I'm going to forget someone, but we had Steve Bailey, Victor Wooten, Stu Ham was on that one, which it was one of the reasons I made sure to clear my schedule and be there. And also Hadrian Farrow. And Hadrian mentioned that he still doesn't know how to read. And it's amazing because of what he can do and how he is such a skilled musician and not having that particular arrow in his quiver.
Right.
And so, yes, there's never a point where it's, oh, you've reached this degree of celebrity or this degree of an age, and, well, I don't need to worry about it. It's just always any education is helpful.
It's true. Well, I say this all the time, too. I have a lot of women that come up to me, and, they're like, I'm older. I don't know if I could starts, I want to do what you're doing, and I literally tell them, like, you can do it. If I can do it now, I've had some musical training in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else, that you can do it with the right training or the right teacher or the right passion.
Aye.
You could go have fun with it. It doesn't have to be a professional thing. You could just go be a weekend warrior, go play somewhere, have fun with it.
Right.
So that kind of gets us into sort of the professional side of things. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Aye.
Real quick, we have Boneyard, I think. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. Boneyard
Yes,
says
yes,
hi.
ma'am.
You are a pleasure to play with. They love you.
Mr. Boneyard, a.k.a. Tim Qualls.
Awesome. Welcome, Tim.
Such a phenomenal drummer. And there's the rote, and just historical line of the bass and drums locking in.
Yeah.
I've not yet had a privilege of playing with just hundreds of drummers, but in my experience, there's really only two. and Mr. Qualls,
he better be in one of those.
Mr. Qualls, and since we're here
He's
in
about to be.
Atlanta, I will say Mr. David Green is another, and
Right.
there are others, but I'll limit to just those two for now.
Awesome.
But these are people where, with 4 clicks of the drumsticks, it's like being in this wonderful, comfortable couch. You just know the time is going to be perfect, and you can play off of one another.
Yeah.
The other kind of drummer, and it's gone. It's not limited to anything, age and gender and all that jazz. The other kind is, the only way I can describe it is Kevin Costner and For Love of the Game, where clear the mechanism, and you have to just mentally block out what they're doing because it's so off, and in some cases awful, that you have to soldier on, and you keep the time yourself and work with the guitarist for the chord changes and all that, and try to just keep the train on the tracks.
I feel like
those are some of the most difficult nights. That's like trying to climb a mountain of peanut butter. Just you slide right back down. But
I feel like that's like a double job, and I've done that before. Where so bass, you are asked to obviously keep time and connect the band and the beat and the rhythm to the guitar and the vocals. That's your job. right? But I feel like it's just when you're having to do both the timekeeping and doing your job, it's definitely a lot of work. And I haven't been in that situation very often. I've actually been very blessed with some amazing drummers here in Atlanta. I know I'm talking about you, Kent Albury, Hunter Cook, Charlie Coach. I've been very lucky.
Charlie's on. That's
yeah.
another
Charlie
fantastic
Coach.
drummer. Yeah.
Sure is.
Alondre Williams, man, you've been tearing it up recently, and I love that. And the magic that can come from you tying into a drummer is like nothing else. When you're on stage and you're tying in with that drummer, it's so powerful.
Aye, and comfortable.
And comfortable.
Aye.
Exactly. It
And
makes
fun.
it fun. It's not a job.
Right.
You're not. Yeah, I agree. We got a couple more people joining us. Let me get my old woman glasses. and see. I'm just near, so I can't see things up close. All right, so we got Everything Bass joined us. He said you're also, Seth, is a historian of music and a pleasure to talk music with.
There
we go.
Owner
Everything
and
Bass.
I guess runner of Everything Bass is Mr. Dale Titus.
Nice. Welcome, Dale.
He set up last year the channel of Everything Bass, and I honestly have forgotten how many months we've been at it, but every Sunday he will pull out a question and ask a panel of bass players, which I'm blessed to be a part, and we'll each video our personal response.
Oh, wow.
And he'll edit
That's
it together
cool.
and post it.
That's really cool.
Oh, it's been phenomenal.
So what was your last question?
Well, honestly, I will say that the last question was what was our experience with Mr. Tim Bogart, who had recently passed. Right after Rocco passed away, we did a video talking about what our influences have been from Rocco, or what personal interaction we'd had, which that I could do. Mr. Tim, I've heard the name, but I was so uneducated in his breadth of work that I had to sit this week out. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing the video, which came out yesterday, as to what everyone else had to say about him. I love learning about new musicians, especially in the bass community, and I'm not trying to be
well, this is a
selfish or anything.
bass episode, so
but and I'll quote a lot of people as I'm sure we go on. If you like humor with irony, the statement was made: he who never quotes another is likely to never say anything worth being quoted. The irony being, I don't remember who said that. But Mr.
You should
Stu,
just say I said that. I quoted. There you go.
There we go. But Mr. Stu Ham had mentioned. Oh, terrific! And this is you say old lady glasses. I'm an old man who loses his train of thought.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Dave, by the way, do you know a Dave?
Several.
Biscotti, I think I'm saying that right. Biscotti? Dave
absolute
Biscotti,
rock
yeah.
legend, yes.
Yes, Dave. Welcome. We also have Mark Cook.
Hey.
Also another guitar player, amazing here in Atlanta, so check that out. So we got Dave and Mark on the podcast. Thank you guys for joining us with Mr. Seth Hill. You're popular.
Now, and thank you for you mentioning that, even though I appreciate you saying I'm popular.
Dude, you're popular.
And I'll tell you a guitar player joke, and then after the joke,
boy.
I'll tell you who said it.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Nobody
boy.
wants to even look at a bass player. I said, girls just wanted to go home with the singer or the drummer. The singer because he was good looking, the drummer because he tends to last longer. But that was Mr. Pete Townsend who made that statement. He said, but then came the advent of John Entwistle, and people started paying more attention to the bass players. And John is by far my single greatest influence.
I was going to say, I was going to ask you what your influence is. We talked a little earlier about this. So it was John Entwistle and...
I would have to say that John Entwistle is my favorite bass player ever. Mr. Stuart Ham is my favorite living bass player. It was almost 10 years ago, and my, how time flies, that I saw on YouTube a clinic that he had done at Sweetwater up in Indiana.
I was going to say Sweetwater, Duluth? Can't be that.
And but they had him come in, and he said, after they introduced him, mentioned who he'd played with and those kind of things, he said, I'm going to start with an old English drinking song that was popularized by Jimi Hendrix, and then proceeded to play the national anthem on a 4-string bass guitar. And it was an entirely revolutionary moment because I did not know that a bass could be used to make such beautiful music.
Sir.
Yeah. It's for me, it was about the expansion of the bass as being more than just somebody that stands in the background and plays the root notes. So for me, those are my influences. Marco, of course, of Nightwish being one of my main ones.
Yes, ma'am.
Which we talked about last week, which is you can be a singer, you can be a writer, you can be up front and be a front person, you can be the biggest part of the band. So for me, that was my big inspiration. So
we could very easily fill hours of conversation.
we could. By the way, Mary Valentine says, hi, Seth.
Oh,
yeah.
Hello, Miss Mary.
Yeah, there you go. He's so nice. I love it. He's so polite. Where are the boys with all the manners? Where have they gone?
To tell a little on my age, I think it's been almost 2 decades that I've said you have to now add a prefix. It is uncommon decency, uncommon courtesy, and uncommon sense. I honestly am part of a generation that I don't understand just because it wasn't what is now the 21st century is unrecognizable by my rearing.
I thought you were going to say my rear end.
I was raised in the South, too, and the joke always goes, if there's a chance that someone's 5 seconds older than you, you have to add the ma'am or the sir or the miss or the mister.
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
It's crazy.
Oh,
it's crazy. All right, so so as we wrap it up, we're already at the end of the interview.
Well, there we are.
So let's talk gear real quick. What is your favorite bass? What are you playing on right now?
Currently, I have an exceedingly highly modified Urge 2.
Okay.
And as actually tomorrow, I will go up to Roswell and pick that bass up from Righteous Guitars.
Okay.
That's a great place.
Ben and Scott have been so kind and helpful in using their Plek machine, which since we are so very much through the interview portion, I will refrain. But
no, well, tell us. We got a little time. I
right.
want to hear about your gear. This is the bass episode.
All right. Well, I was able to find this Urge 2 off of Reverb, and even though I knew there were a couple things that I wanted to do with it right off the bat, when it arrived, I still plugged it in to see what just stock off the line tonal options it had. The short version of the long story is that I have immediately changed the bridge with the Babix bass bridge string through. Babix is such an incredible company in how the way it contacts to the body. It's easy to adjust, and I was looking just the other day on their artist list, and I need to definitely fill that out because every bass that I have that I use professionally has a Babix string through bridge on it. But I replaced the bridge. I put in the Pure Tone jack, which for and I'm a bass nerd. I'm a music nerd, and so even for all the sound advancements in technology, that microphones and amps and the ways that now we have all this new gear that sounds so much better, a lot of the equipment that go into instruments are still the same ones from the 50s.
Haven't
I was
changed.
going to say, it hasn't changed
We'll talk about that in a
much.
little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, to carry on. Yes, changed out the bridge, replaced the jack, I had a fantastic Mr. Brady Muckleroy of Muckleroy Basses in Texas.
Nice.
I've spoken to him a great deal on Facebook, and he recommended using Delano pickups and preamp, which because the Fender Urge 2 is a registered Fender instrument, I was able to find the schematics and send him exactly what I had, and he was able to build pickups and a preamp to work together specifically for my bass.
That's amazing.
And there's night and day difference in the clarity and punch of the pickups. But most importantly, that's the thing that makes me stand out, other than my size, is the fact that I use very large strings with an extremely low action.
So what gauge do you use?
I actually do the same. I use instead of 40s, I use 50 and up, so it's 10 whatever higher.
My E string is a 120. It's intended to be a B. I have to buy.
Okay, so you get the 5 string.
DR has been very kind to me because I can't order my strings through a shop. I have to contact them directly, and actually, and I don't know how many companies have a cell phone number where you can contact them, and that's an internet company that doesn't have a store or anything, but has a cell phone number that you can contact them directly. Nice.
That's wonderful.
Fret Nation, there we go. It took me a moment to think of it. Fret Nation allows me to contact them directly, and I get my strings up to now through them. And so I have to order a 5-string set, so it's 120, 100, 80, and 65.
I was just looking at my
the only way that I'm able to get the low action with my bass is because those strings are so huge. The elliptical circumference of the string when I pluck it is much more narrow, so I'm able to get better clearance. But some players have picked up my bass, which very few people do.
So I'm honored because I think I picked it up.
It was and I will, if you'll allow one diatribe from that NAMM week in a moment.
Of course.
As far as I know, we talked about this earlier. As far as I know, I am the only bass player who, in my shows, actively uses John Entwistle's typewriter technique. He developed it when bass drum started having double kick pedals. And he developed it that for a reason to keep up with that. But it's so unique, and it has such a different tone to it that I'm happy to let everyone who makes slap bass their baby and they find their own way of doing it. I'm happy to tip my hat and let them have it and do the typewriter.
I was going to say, so check it out. Do you have videos of this?
I've not been able to have a situation where my style of playing is highlighted in a video.
We got to fix that.
That'll be fixed.
We got to
fix that.
fixed. We got to fix that. So we also have, by the way, Jim Fuller saying
hey, Jim.
hi. Hi, Jim Fuller. And also we have Leo. I believe he says. Okay, so he says he's got a couple of the bridges on his bass as well. So we were talking about that. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep up. We've got a lot of comments, which I love here. And then Dave says, my old guitarist invented the jack that you talked about. So this is Dave. Yeah, so very cool. And, so you've got this typewriter technique. Tell us more about what that is, so people out there who aren't bass players.
Right.
What is that?
It's simply a way of striking the string rather than plucking it from a perpendicular angle. You're striking it from a parallel angle. So it's very percussive in how it bounces off of the fret. And when, like with Mr. Qualls, playing with him and doing those techniques, we can match our beats. So I say beats because though
you're creating a rhythmic pattern,
right,
with just the percussive nature of what you're doing.
Yes, and one thing that John mentioned, you can get amazing harmonics that way.
Nice, yeah.
I
can see that. Very cool. All right. So we need to get you some videos up of this, of course.
Absolutely.
And this is also sort of a John Entwistle thing, right?
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is kind of where you got this from.
All right.
And I've had so many people say, John Entwistle's their number one bass player. I just wish I liked the Who better.
All right. Well, and
We've
I'll
talked
tell
about
you,
this.
All right. I was raised with classic. My dad raised me on 60s and 70s rock and roll, so I heard the Who, but it literally wasn't until about, I'd say, 2008 I came across. I was just looking for bass solos. That was the and just put that into YouTube and was going through the search that way, and a video that is 1 minute and 11 seconds came up with John Entwistle backing Meatloaf, of all things, and they were doing Johnny Be Good. And Meatloaf gave Mr. Entwistle 3 12-bar solos, and normally I do not learn a solo note for note, but that was so special and spectacular that I actually had to take the time and figure out what he was doing, and so I could recreate it.
That's great.
And it was just what he could do outside of the Who.
Right. I think that's where it is, where it's like literally, like if that's your only exposure, it's good, but it's like what he does outside of that. I think that's what you're exactly that. So I do Bad to the Bone. I actually sing that.
Oh,
so I need it. We need to figure this out. Maybe we can do some Big Bottoms.
Oh, that would be that's a definitive bass song. Before we wrap this up,
all right, wrap it up. What you got? What are you saying? Words of wisdom.
2 things that I have to mention. If you are either a bass player or drummer, if you're in the rhythm section, you have to do a deep research study of Leland Sklar and Kenny Aronoff. Leland Sklar, in November of 2019, did a little clinic at the Berklee College of Music, and they announced that he had done and recorded over 25,000 tracks in his career. He prefers playing barroom rock and roll, but has played every single genre that there is. And I love the quote where, again, my friend Henning Pauly in Germany, they were doing an interview, and he said, "Now, you guys who generally watch guitar pedal videos may not know who Lee Sklar is, but you probably own 10 or more like 50 albums he's played on, unless you're into Northern Norwegian Swedish grindcore metal, in which case you probably only own 2. And with all the humility in the world, he leaned over and said, "I've done 5." So, his breadth. And there's one thing that I will take to my grave and use in my entire career, and that's hand position. Both Lee and John Entwistle would say you can have one volume setting and tone setting on your amplifier and guitar and get many different textures by how you hit the string. And
that's so true.
And where you hit the string.
Yes.
I mean, it's open versus fretted. Fretted E versus an open E, or fretted E on the B string sounds totally different than a fretted E.
The right
on the
hand
A
also
string.
doesn't get enough attention.
It's a little bit of that too.
For guitar or bass.
There's a whole bunch of that.
And my closing statement, like, and about the bass community, as being such a welcoming and familial type, because like you were saying about one of your projects, having multiple percussionists, 2 drummers, 3 guitar players, and keyboards, generally 1 bass player. So we don't have a chance in bands or in studios to really have camaraderie one with the other. So when we do have events like this interview or bass camp or all that kind of thing, it's such a more friendly atmosphere. On the
Well, I will say, I feel like bass players are the most easygoing for the most part, willing to work with each other and share each other's gear. I couldn't tell you how many times I go on tour and it's literally 5 bands and all the bass players share the same gear, and then the guitar players all have 50 cabins and whatever's going. No offense against everybody else, but I will say I love the fact that I feel like it's just a camaraderie. Maybe that's the word. With everything.
And before I forget, Mark Vanderklay.
I was going to say, so you had right here, make sure that you mention, we also need Ross Cumical. I'm going to say that wrong. Kumkel. Probably saying that. Kunkel. So this is from your friend. Let's see. This is from. Sorry, I'm trying to read all this. This is from Boneyard.
Oh, aye.
You're saying making sure that you include that.
Aye. Well,
with Lee.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Russ Kunkel.
Yeah,
Russ Kunkel.
I was like, I know I'm butchering this.
My apologies.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's a rhythm section that again have just covered all kind of different genres, but work very well together. There's nothing like the dynamic between a bass player and a drummer. My amplifier, I'm currently endorsed with Vanderklay Amplifications.
Nice.
And as we talked earlier, my favorite color is red, and red and black is my
beautiful.
theme.
It's black and red. It's gorgeous.
And for what I use is just the head with right now two 112 cabinets. And honestly, I can have the whole thing set up and lift the entire rig easily, not hurting my back or anything, and move it. It's very lightweight with 1,600 watts of power.
Woo. It's a split cab though, right?
Aye. It's two 112s.
Okay, so that's a little, it's a little easier with a split cab versus the fridge.
Right.
The fridge. And even though my fridge, my Ampeg 810, is a lot lighter than my Mesa Boogie 410.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So,
nothing's heavier than a Mesa, I'll tell you that right now.
The thing's the beast.
And Mark and I are working on a touring rig, which would have two 15s and four 12s.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Which that's not used very often in small clubs, but something to have for a big show.
Right.
And like this, I promise. I'm getting the hook here. But the last night of NAMM in 2019, I went every night to a club that unfortunately has had to close its doors, the Douglas Corner Cafe, and Mr. Roy Vogt, who I met him and I looked him in the eye. I said, "You are the most famous bass player that I had never heard of." it was criminal. And then all of my friends were like, "Oh yeah, everybody loves Roy." Like I was late to the party, but he invited me to come in and kind of help with the gear. He had a Thunder Row. It was the bass invitational, and I believe that 2019 was his 9th annual, and we missed out because of the virus on the 10th.
I was going to say, because this week is actually virtual NAMM.
Aye.
So
but
about that.
Both Aram Bedrosian and Doug Johns walked into the Douglas Corner Cafe, and those are two of my top 10 most influential bass players. And
awesome.
Even though I was trying to behave properly and professionally, I'm in my head I had three thoughts: don't shriek, don't pass out, and don't puke. It's just seeing those guys, and they were just such lovely people, and both of them played my bass as well. They both checked it out,
awesome.
and just were great people.
Well, yeah. So of course, good community. I feel like we've got a good community. I love NAMM. Of course, that's going on right now. Virtual NAMM. Can't have it in person still, so we're still virtual. But yeah, so hopefully we'll get back summer NAMM. Hopefully we'll see you guys in Nashville this summer for summer NAMM. I don't think it's been canceled yet.
As far as I know, it hasn't.
We'll let you guys know. And I'll be there, of course, with Guitar Girl magazine, and we'll be rocking some more stuff and hopefully get some more gear to try out. So I'm super excited about that. I've been trying this new jammy guitar, so I don't know. You'll have to see that. That's interesting.
Lovely.
It's a MIDI controller and a digital travel modular guitar.
All right.
So, yeah, lots of things going on with that, of course. And let's see who else we got in the chat room real quick before we go to the Gauntlet of Fire, because that's next.
Okay.
All right, Bonestar, it was a great night. Boneyard said, great to meet Roy after all these years, and had a chance to visit Winchester again and talk shop. So
yeah.
yeah.
Jeez,
awesome.
That was so great. And he used my drum key.
Nice. Nice. Whoever uses each other's drums keys, they're all friends, right? All right, so Gauntlet of Fire, we've got to do this because we're actually way over time, but that's okay, man. You were awesome. This has been fun. So we have to do your stripper name. That's right. Oh, yeah. Yep. For all you guys out there, we have to do a stripper name. So let's find that out. What is the name of your first pet?
Never have had one.
Oh, man. Okay.
Not even one.
No, ma'am.
So
if you had a
nothing.
pet, what would be that name? Like if you were maybe a kid and you had gotten a pet, what would you have wanted to name it?
Either a black dog or a black cat named Shadow, I imagine.
Shadow. We're going to go with that. Shadow.
Okay.
What street did you grow up on?
SD's Drive.
Shadow STD Drive.
Oh, my.
Shadow SDs. Okay, I wasn't going to go there, but
Or Shadow SD. There we go. I like that. Shadow SD. We'll go with that.
Okay.
Shadow SD. Awesome. All right. So that is your stripper, our stage name. I do like Shadow, though. That could be cool. You know, you kind of in the shadow, man. You got the black hat and the black outfit. You could be a shadow. You guys let me know what your stage or stripper name is here. You can participate, of course, over here in the chat room. We'll read them out.
Lovely.
Don't be embarrassed. It's not too bad. I've heard worse. I've heard some pretty bad ones, so I'm sure they're not too bad. All right. So I did want to ask you this question because when I got my blonde bass, which you've held,
Aye.
I went to the insane asylum to meet up with a guy who sold it to me.
Okay.
Now, this is the Georgia Insane Asylum that's closed down. That's the most haunted place in Georgia.
I've been
Just
through there.
about,
Okay,
other
all
than
right.
Savannah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it's over in the Crazy House, right? Over
Okay.
there that's shut down. I met
Right.
him. So do you believe in the paranormal?
I would say that there's definitely more than we readily can see or hear or touch and taste.
Okay. So on that, would you go ghost hunting with me?
Oh, that would be so much fun.
There you go. So we'll find out what we have. Of course, we've got a couple. Let's read some of the different contestants here. I do like Bootsy Stanford. That's a great one. Jake Evergreen. That's a pretty good one. All right. Let's see what else we got. I'm Lucky Prospect. So yeah, you got you get. That's great, man. I like that actually.
Aye.
That is a gold digger name right there.
Very much so.
Ching.
Yeah.
All right,
That's a
guys, keep
bazinga.
coming out. We have the freight train of pain. Well, there
Wow.
you go. All right. So we got some stage names going on here.
Aye.
Some great ones. All right. So tell me something about yourself that seems like it's completely made up, but it's 100% true.
That I still believe in genuine gentlemanly behavior and actual chivalry. It is not a joke.
So give me some examples.
Well, I was playing a gig, and literally the crowd was enjoying the music. We had a packed house. We took a break, and I went off stage just to get a Diet Coke from the bar because I never get water from a bar. There's something weird about that.
It's because it's like tap water out of their, their
and
dishwasher
usually yellow.
sink.
But anyway, I had to get through the crowd, and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am." This woman turned around, saw me, screamed, and tased me.
Oh, really?
Aye.
Wow.
Ouch.
In the balls?
Thankfully, just in the chest.
Okay.
It still hurt.
All right.
But it was just a shocking thing, and so I thought, okay, I
Well,
must.
that's just awful.
It was less than pleasant, I will say.
Oof. I will say I would not believe that.
Okay,
There you
I
go.
don't blame
That's
you.
a good one. I would not
What
believe
was this
that.
lady's motivation for doing this?
My only rationalization was just she saw something so ugly she had to tase it. I don't know.
No.
No. Oh,
Or I look
man.
frightening. I don't know.
Was your hand going some? No,
Not at all.
See,
Had she been
see, I can
drinking?
believe that.
I would I would
Imagine
say that's
so.
a fair bet.
Okay.
Okay. All right. that's yeah. I would totally believe that is 100% true. I would never have guessed. So there you go. All right. So if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I think the answer that's probably trite, but at least is true for me, definitely to be able to fly.
All right. We have another for fly.
I mean, it just looks like so much fun.
Now, the
really pass that up
question is,
either.
how are you going to fly? Are you going to sprout wings? Are you Supermaning it? How are you? What's your? Give me your flight pose.
Pose.
Yeah, it's a pose.
Well, yeah, what's that going to look like?
What does it
How are
look
you going to
like?
fly?
How are you going to fly? You just going to sit there and like on a couch and fly around, or
If you levitate?
I was, since you mentioned the paranormal, I would say not too dissimilar from Neo in the Matrix, just using a form of telekinesis where instead of moving other things, I'm moving myself. So
All
just
Telekinesis on yourself.
I like this. See that
like
is
that.
a significant superpower
quite.
rather than just flying, which it's cool, but I like that better. All right, Julie, do you have a question for him?
Sure. This is a fun one I tried out last week. Now, of course, you wouldn't really do this, but if you could choose a type of crime to get away with completely, you're not going to face any judicial consequences from doing this crime, what crime would this be? And you are on air, so you don't have to go into specifics or anything, but what would you get away with, and why would you choose this?
I feel like this would go into like 100% happen and we wouldn't believe it territory, but
well, in terms of getting away with a crime, that's so close to politics.
yeah.
So.
Well, it depends on the crime that you're choosing.
Well, you can steal like a sandwich or something, or
You can steal a lifetime supply of sandwiches. I mean, you can do a lot of things if you're not going to face any consequences.
Well, I will be able to both answer the question honestly as well as make it part of the base night. I would have status graphite guitars make me 50 buzzards. And when we're off the air, we can talk about why that would be a crime.
If you guys know out there in the chat room, chime in. Yes. All right. There you go. All right. Y'all let us know what that is. Okay. So here's one I haven't asked anybody, and I think it'd be kind of funny to ask you, which is what sport or event would be the funniest to add a mandatory amount of alcohol to? Like you had to drink a certain amount.
Oh, so
within
many.
this event or this sport
To participate.
to make it funny for everybody watching. What would that be?
Oh, well, it would be actually be reintroducing golf. That's an example of a sport that came from being drunk. That's a Scottish idea of, okay, I'm going to take a ball and whack it in a gopher hole. Oh, you mean like pool? No, not with a straight stick, with a messed up stick.
And we're going to go outside.
Hi.
And we're just going to go in the lake and just, whack stuff.
It's swing so much that you feel like you're going to have a stroke. Oh, that's what we'll call it. We'll call them a stroke.
Wow. I like it.
Is it true that golf, the name for golf, is actually an acronym? I've been told that. I didn't know if it was true.
Oh, I haven't the foggiest.
Oh, I've always been told it stood
Be
for...
the expert.
Sure,
yeah.
I've always been told it stood for gentlemen only, ladies forbidden, but I didn't know if that was really
I
true.
don't know about that.
My.
Oh, no. Maybe
Because
I'll
it was their
have to look
excuse to
it
go hit things with sticks while they got drunk. I bet. I mean,
All right. Now, I haven't asked this question in a while. If you could be a fruit, what fruit would you be?
Tomato, because so many people get that wrong.
I like it. I haven't had a tomato yet.
the fruit that everyone calls a vegetable.
Aye.
I like it. I like it. Why a tomato other than being just miscategorized?
Oh, also red, and can be either bitter or delicious.
Oh, there you go. That's a very wise answer.
It's a very versatile fruit. Yeah.
All right.
he's
So
right.
how do you feel like pineapple on pizza?
I'm fine with it. It's
all right.
delicious.
All
Good
right.
Hawaiian pizza.
But
Nothing wrong with it.
I'm not a true blue Italian by
Wrong.
any means. So
All right.
I love pineapple.
No. All right. Julie, do you have another question you want to ask real quick?
Why don't we go with the crayon question?
Let's do the crayon. Yeah, I think he'd be fun.
I think he's gonna
be
he's
fun
gonna
for
be
the crayon question.
You are gonna be a new addition to the crayon box. This is not a color that we've seen before. So what's the name of your color and what color is it?
Well, I'm unfamiliar with the current list of crayon colors, but I'd have to say, if I could be one or could make an addition, just blood red.
Is there
Dark,
blood red?
rich blood red.
I wonder if there is a blood red. I think they would not go there.
Probably not for the kids. And they have a crimson, I know, but they're not blood red. No,
I don't think they would go there. I think that's
the reddest of the reds.
Yeah.
Okay,
Reddest of the red. So would it have like iron bits in it?
Or would it ooze a little bit when you used it?
Probably be just that perfect mixture of red and black, because so many reds, as you can see in cars, are, oh, it's red, no, that's orange, or no, it's red, that's actually purple. You know, just genuine.
You're not colorblind, right? So
right.
you can see, okay, because my poor husband, it's like green,
poor
gray,
Patch.
yellow, all is the same.
Oh, he's like, yeah, that one, the purple one.
But he can see
No.
reds. But I know people who are colorblind to red, and they can't see orange, red, whatever, pink stuff. Yeah, interesting. Oh, all right. I like that. Blood red.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep that in the box. We'll keep you in the box. We'll keep sharpening you.
Thank you so
keep
much.
using you. All right.
I am rather dull, so I appreciate the sharpening.
So, if Hollywood made a movie about your life, who would you want to star you? It can be a musician as well. It can just be anybody famous, essentially.
Oh. So many people are probably thinking Zach Galifianakis. But honestly, you have me stumped. Because as ugly as I am, I would rather...
Ya.
Yeah, as ugly as I am, I would rather look like me than someone else.
So you'd rather play yourself.
You're playing
You'd rather
yourself.
have the job.
There you go.
Yeah,
So-
nobody can do it better.
Y'all know, hire Seth Hill. He comes highly recommended.
He's the
he
real
can
deal.
play the bass. He's the real deal. He's got the real mustache and the real beard, and he's a gentleman and a scholar.
Oh,
There we
you're
go.
very kind.
So hire Seth. All right. So you've listened to some of the past episodes.
Aye.
Have you looked up yet what a rat liquor is?
When I made my best guess, and you said that I was incorrect, I decided, okay, I'm not going to Google this.
Okay,
and
good.
I would at least, whether it's on camera or not, I will ask you, because I'm very curious. The definition that I had for that evening was just something that I'd picked up in conversation, and I don't even recall.
I think you were pretty close, right? So what was that?
I believe that it was something having to do with an illness or like a plague of some sort.
Yeah, I think that's close.
Aye. Okay.
So it's taking that concept that applies to olden days and applying it to now.
Oh.
So we'll leave you with that, guys out there. Nobody look it up.
And three of us can talk about it on break, but you
We'll
guys
talk
can't.
about it on break. That's
because
right. You guys
You
can
can't tell if you
keep
look it up.
wondering what this is. I still love Julie. Your answer is still the best. Just
It was
something,
precious, wasn't it?
something to comfort.
It
the
was a
rats
comfort
with.
object, is what I
Just-
thought it was. Like
just
a thunder jacket for a dog, only smaller because
You
it's a
put
rat.
on the rat. Oh, that's adorable. That was adorable. All right, so we got to end this. We've got two questions. I got a surprise question for you at the end. But you got to choose your quarantine house. Now, you've done this before. You've heard this before. You have 4 houses. You are stuck with these people during the quarantine shutdown. Who are you choosing? And this actually it always comes back around in a weird way. So number 1, cocaine hookers and Gary Busey. It's a fun house. Number 2 is Shrooms, Lego, Johnny Depp. Number 3, marijuana brownies, Nintendo Wii, and Betty White, who's still holding on. She's still out there. Number 4, alcohol, Trivial Pursuit, and Sean Connery.
I'll have to say Johnny Depp, just because I know we can play some good music and he can enjoy the mushrooms by himself. Probably
All
make his guitar playing a little more adventurous.
Yep. All right. So number 2. You choose 2. So it's a very popular house. Actually, 2 and 3 are the most popular houses. So yes.
Whoever picks Gary Busey, oh, may God have mercy on
I
him.
have yet to get an
only remember Ray Minor did. That's right. One person has chosen Gary
Ray
Busey.
did because
brave lady.
That's right. We've had one number 1.
Jeez.
I've had like just 2 number 4s, which is the Sean Connery. But they only voted for him to be alive. Nobody has chosen Sean Connery zombie or Sean Connery ghost. You can have a ghost moment. Which, by the way, did you guys see the mittens with the Bernie mittens and Ghost? So
I didn't see the Ghost one.
They superimpose Bernie mittens on the Ghost scene when they're doing the pottery.
Oh my word!
Yeah,
I did see them put them on the Spirit from Spirited Away from the anime, and it looked really great actually. But I didn't see that one.
The song was going, and Bernie's mittens were wrapped around her as they were doing.
Goodness.
Ghost mittens. Oh wow.
All right, so I think I need to add that to one of the houses. That might need to be one of the houses. Bernie mittens, the pottery, and I'll have to think of a drug or something.
Okay.
All right. Okay, well, last question for you is, are you accepting applications for a girlfriend or a boyfriend?
I'm looking at going for the record. I have so far lived my entire life without a single drop of alcohol, a single use of drugs of any kind, and I've also gone my entire life without a date. So.
Oh no, ladies.
So are you accepting applications? Do you have an application ready?
I figure that because, as we've talked about manners and gentlemanly behavior and such, that it's probably best that I just be respectful and kind and let them find whatever else they're looking for. The joke that I love is in a Venn diagram that there is no cross-section between women worth having and women that would have me.
Oh. All right, ladies. Right? Ladies.
Probably not true.
Seth is looking. He's available. This handsome gentleman is available, so make sure you hit him up. We are including all his info below in the show notes. Where else can people find you, by the way?
I am so very old school. The only there we go. Social media. I forgot the word that I have is Facebook.
Okay. So I was going to say I found the Facebook, so that's in the notes. If you had anything else, but find them through Facebook. And NAM, you guys are out at NAM. You'll be there.
We shall endeavor to persevere, and hopefully I can get back there. And
on stages soon, right?
Yes.
Do you have a show coming up?
The only show I have right now on my calendar is a bar in, I've forgotten what part of Mississippi, next Thursday.
It's pretty bad if you don't know. You're playing it.
I have the address, I think, from my GPS, but I've even forgotten the name of the bar.
We'll have to add that in the notes later.
There you go. All right, guys. And if you're out in Mississippi and you're listening to this, it's an hour behind, but that's okay because Seth is not behind, so you can hit him up. And we are going to go to the intermission,
which is so very lovely. I had to say the way you've put these old school style intermission.
So from 1940s movies, you guys can enjoy a little intermission. Go get yourself some snacks. We'll be back. We have an entire second part to all of this, and of course, if you guys are on the podcast, we'll see you in like 2 seconds.
Yep.
All right, we'll be right back.
And now on with the show.
And we're back, everybody. Welcome to Sonic Sphere Podcast. We are back. I hope you guys enjoyed y'all snacks and got some drinkies, which we did as well. And I think it's time for Julie Tew to do her old school of rock and roll music history. Let's do the intro. All right, Julie, let's educate ourselves on what happened this week in music in the years past, in the yesteryears.
Well, I guess we have to start off right now with the year 1934. That's when Lawrence Hammond's patented the Hammond B3 organ. He actually started working on it in 1929. Not a simple project, and so it took him a little while. He applied for the patent, and 34 This Week received the patent in April, and they began production and the sale of the B3 organ in 1935. It was originally very popular in churches because you know how big a pipe organ is. It takes up the whole side of a church. You know, the ones that you've seen. B3 organ's not much bigger than a wall unit piano with 2 sets of keys and foot pedals. Unlike other instruments of its type, it made it sound through a complex set of rotary motor-driven generators, which produced a different variety of timbres or tone colors, which we now know like is chorus, and that hadn't really been heard before and could replicate sounds that sound like a violin.
You gotta put that mic
or the flute.
Julie, you gotta put the mic
Goodness
in front of your
gracious.
face. There we go.
I had to get in here.
All right, keep going. Let's see if we can hear you.
Probably much better now.
Yep, keep going.
Okay. Good?
Yep, keep going.
Okay. And so this came around right as the advent of the Great Depression, and
There
so
we go.
the instrument was very popular in churches until a lot of artists realized that the way that its mechanism worked, you could time it to turn it on and off and get some really interesting effects, which people are still doing. The B3 organ is just a really versatile instrument. And it became very popular in the jazz scene in the 30s after it became popular in the church. And since then, everyone from Styx, Pink Floyd, Genesis, yes, Bruce Springsteen, the Stranglers, and Deep Purple all use them. And a lot of artists use the B3 still because it's so versatile. And design really hasn't changed much since 1934, interestingly enough.
When I play with guys that
Yeah.
have one of these, I mean, they still bring out the original. Like pretty much.
Yeah, it's one of those things. The older it is, the
hasn't
cooler
really
it is.
changed, yeah,
It's just the
yeah.
older it is, the cooler it is.
So they bring the whole thing out, and it's not that huge, you know, but
No.
it's really cool. Yeah,
About the size of a wall piano.
Yeah.
Not much taller or
it's so
wider.
cool sounding. I love it. I love it.
Especially when it's combined with the Leslie.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the Leslie speaker made all the difference too. In those, which wasn't manufactured with it. It was something done later until I think Hammond realized that it was pretty essential.
Aye.
And kind of gave that up, and you could buy them together. I think after what year?
Oh, I've forgotten that.
I think I want to say 49 or 50.
That sounds about right.
You had
because
that
by the
option.
time-
Otherwise, you had to buy it
Right.
separate and have it installed.
Aye.
So next, we get to talk about Huddy William Ledbetter, better known to us as Leadbelly. It was this year in 1936 that he made some recordings with the American Record Corporation for the Library of Congress collection for American music. But this was also his birthday in 1988. That's the year he was born.
Oh, wow.
So the man goes way back. He's a figure that we don't have a lot of information about. Being born in 88, being born in the South. Even his name, we're not exactly sure how he got his nickname. I mean, it sounds like Ledbetter,
Now, this
Leadbelly.
isn't, by the way, 1988. We're talking about 1888.
1888, yes.
Okay, I just want to I just want to specify if you guys don't know who that is. I know we have the early recordings of it, but
Yes, that's what I was talking about. And
those
so
don't have video though, right? Or do we have video?
There
we
is-
have some video of Leadbelly later in his life. Now, the man died in 1949
Right.
of Lou Gehrig disease. They didn't know that that's what it was then, really, but that's what he had. So he was somebody who, he had a bit of a temper. We can talk about that in a second. And we're not even really sure how Leadbelly got his nickname because he was in and out of jail. The man had a temper, like I said. And there's two stories how he got his nickname. One, that he could drink crazy amounts of white lightning and not get sick, therefore Leadbelly. The other thing is while he was in jail, he was in a knife fight and suffered some injuries to his abdomen, but healed. So again, Leadbelly. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But he was musical since he was a child. That's how his family passed time. He knew how to play the fiddle. He knew how to play the accordion, but he took to the 12-string guitar.
Aye.
And it was that Stella 12-string guitar that was really his trademark. People call him a blues artist. He was marketed as one later in his life, but being born in 1888, he was really older than the blues. W.C. Handy and people like him don't really remember hearing that blues sound until after the turn of 1900. He had ears before that.
Oh, yes.
So he was part of the folks that maybe heard it first, shifted it first. But
well, I
but
think,
really,
I think a lot of it comes
yeah.
from his background, of course.
yeah,
and sort of,
absolutely.
again,
Being
that's
from
kind of the basis
Mississippi.
of a lot of blues too, which is, that's what we see it with the Delta blues, and we see
But
it.
really, his first on the 12 string, he was one of the artists we had the first recordings of using his foot as a percussion instrument. When he recorded,
Right,
he would use the
right.
sole of his shoe. He didn't need anything to
Mm-hmm.
perform with or anything like that.
Right. I remember the recordings that I heard that yeah, it's basically just his voice, just the guitar
And his
it's-
shoe.
and shoe. Yeah, a percussive thing that is the shoe, and it literally, yeah. And I think a lot of this goes back to, we're actually lucky we have these recordings, right?
Absolutely, we're extremely lucky.
And because it was so early. I mean, you got to think about how early that was. There wasn't a way to record this. I mean, that easily. I mean, that was. Do we know how that was recorded? How his early stuff was recorded?
So he didn't have those recordings done until
Okay.
1936 by ARC. That was actually done when he was in prison.
Okay.
So that was a Library of Congress project. That's how Muddy Waters was first recorded as well,
okay.
too. A little bit later,
But he was doing this
to preserve the
way
Americana.
earlier
He was
than
performing. He was performing much earlier than this, but he didn't get this type of attention until he got locked up.
Ain't that how it goes?
Yeah, he actually did his first prison stint in 1918. This one was for murder. We would call that manslaughter now. He was in a knife fight again and killed the other person and got locked up in 1918. The tradition goes, and this is verified by a few sources, but you can't find this in print, so it's a little bit hard to be sure, that he won his early release in 1925 because he sang a song for the Texas governor when he visited the prison to see how the prisoners were doing and how they were being treated. And he then petitioned for he gave him a pardon.
Wow.
But he resumed his life of drifting and again got locked up in 1930 again in Louisiana because of a knife fight. And that's where he met Alan Lomax, who was doing the Library of Congress project. And they did his first recordings there. They did some more of his blues standards. We actually have, because of Lead Belly, songs like Rock Island Line, Midnight Special, and Irene.
Right.
That's not what they asked of him at that time. They did 53 takes, only took 6 of his songs. And they did songs like, and they released them on labels like Banner and Melatonin and Oriole at the time, not big labels. And so it wasn't until his third prison stint
Right.
in New York
also real
City.
quick,
Yeah.
Nirvana covered, of course, Where Did You Sleep?
Yeah,
Last
I'm
Night.
about to get to that.
Okay,
So
that was a big thing.
he totally influenced a lot of people like Kurt Cobain and Eric Clapton. Covered his songs. It wasn't until his third prison stint that he got, I think, maybe the attention that he really deserved. And once he got out, that's when he went on tour with Woody Guthrie.
Okay.
And so most of the recordings in the video that we have of Lead Belly were because of that.
There is one quintessential rock song that is everyone knows, even if they don't know the band. Black Betty, they know that song. They know
Right.
the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Ram Jam, who the artist who rearranged it and recorded it, they actually credit Lead Belly on it.
Right.
But the song Black Betty used to be, it predated even Lead Belly because it was a tree chopping song.
Right. I was gonna say, because I know that has some deep roots,
Right.
obviously, with kind of the origins of a lot of that stuff that we know now as the blues, but also like ties to slavery and ties to a lot of this,
Aye.
the folk, tradition.
Yeah. The concept of having 4 men standing around a tree, each with an axe.
Yeah.
And I say, we want to get this thing down. So keeping a rhythm.
Right,
And singing
right.
a song.
And that's
keeping
yeah,
rhythm and
exactly.
keeping the chopping going.
Yep.
So if you haven't really heard much of Lead Belly before, you really should. It's very much Americana. It's part of who you
I
are,
would say
who
it's
I
more
am.
Americana than I would say blues. I
Oh,
think
wow.
there's a little bit of blues. but,
Absolutely. Some of the most famous recordings are just him sitting on a fence, playing a sweltering guitar.
Yeah.
And you can, I mean, that's available to you on YouTube or Amazon or anything like that, and you should definitely check that out because where would we be without him?
Yeah. Wow.
J.B. Lenore was
1949.
That's the year he passed away.
Yeah, I was going to say it was popularized in 1949.
After a lot of his stuff was made popular posthumously.
Right. And Good Night, Irene, and Midnight Special was
Which
also,
everyone has covered.
Yeah. So those are also, I mean, that's definitely influenced almost a lot of different genres, I would say. I mean,
yes.
So there you go. Awesome. All right.
Also, we get to this week, just because we can celebrate Django Reinhardt. Born Jean Reinhardt, born in 1910 in a caravan outside of Belgium. In a town called Liberace, to a family of Romani. That's what they were called then. We would know them as gypsies. He was proficient on guitar and banjo by the time he was 12 years old. And he toured all over Europe, but we didn't get to see him in the U.S. until much later. What we really know about Django Reinhardt, though, is he was injured really early in his life. He was 18 years old when the wooden wagon that he shared with his family caught fire, and in the fire his hand was damaged. And so he only had the use of these 3 digits. Couldn't really use these anymore from the burns. Didn't really stop him.
Not in the slightest.
Not in the slightest. So just with the use of that thumb, middle, and index finger of his left hand, he invented another way to play the guitar, and kind of made a movement really for guitar sound, and a different way of flat picking. He moved on to Paris in the 1930s, escaped what became World War II there, and really what we call gypsy jazz circled up around Django.
Yep, Django. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got Dave agreeing. Django, Dave. There you go. He's on it, man.
And aside from the incredible music that Django created, we also have one of the quintessential rock and roll guitarists, Tony Iommi.
I'm getting to that,
sorry.
yeah.
Don't ruin
because
it. Spoiler.
I was gonna talk about Chet Atkins first because he came first.
Spoiler alert. All right.
So after the war, Django, realized he kind of always wanted to visit the United States, and that trip kind of cemented his influence on a lot of U.S. players, and really went beyond the realm of gypsy jazz. And Chet Atkins had drove up from Tennessee to Chicago to see Django Reinhardt play with Duke Ellington on his tour there. And he wanted to get his autograph. That was Chet Atkins' mission. And Chet Atkins recorded like about 100 of Django Reinhardt's songs and wanted to influence pretty much every country guitar player that followed after that at that point. And so you're talking about Tony Iommi, who's another person who gained a lot of influence from Django Reinhardt because they had something in common.
Yes, ma'am.
You can see this video. Gibson has a masterclass series of videos, of which Tony Iommi is one. He's sitting in his library at home. It's a really impressive library, I have to say. And gives about a 2-hour interview, and he begins the interview at the very beginning of Black Sabbath. Right after they were signed, Tony Iommi worked in a processing plant. And the story goes that on the last day of the job, he was going to quit because he, when they got signed, he didn't really need that job anymore, wasn't going to have time for that job. But he was going to finish out the week.
Is this a meat processing plant?
Uh-huh.
We have that in common.
Yeah. And he came home for lunch and said, I think I'm just not going to go back. And his family was, well, you really need to finish what you started, son. Don't leave him hanging like that. And he went back, and someone else had called out, and they asked him to work on a machine that he wasn't familiar with, and ended up slicing fingertips.
Yep.
And he was devastated, thought that it was over, spent several weeks at home just so upset about this. And a friend brought over a recording and some photos of Django Reinhardt and saying, look, this man sounds like this without the use of his last 2 fingers. Like, there's got to be a way. And so he started thinking about it, and his sister was a seamstress, and thinking about seeing the caps on her fingers so she wouldn't stab herself with a needle when she was sewing. And he's like, I can do something like that and still play, and tried some different substances and realized that leather was the most like his own skin, and ended up being able to find a way to play, but inspired by how Django Reinhardt overcame his injury.
By the way, Dave said that he had actually taken a shift up for a friend, and that's when that happened.
Okay, I was told someone called out, and he was basically asked to cover that machine, but
no, interesting. crazy.
And so it's like a rubber. It's like a synthetic compound now, but he actually used leather at first, and figure out how to fill out the sound the same way Django did.
Oh, why?
And the rest is history, as they say, as we like to say here on the podcast.
So, big jump ahead, I guess. 1959, this year, Buddy Holly made his last recordings
Buddy Holly.
alone with an acoustic guitar in his Greenwich Village apartment. The songs included Peggy Sue Got Married, Crying, Waiting, Hoping. That's What They Say, What to Do, and Learning the Game, and That Makes It Tough. The rough versions were overdubbed and released after his death, as you know. I think next month is what we call the day the music died.
Right.
Where he perished in a plane crash, unfortunately. But he was able to record these before he did that. 1962, one of my favorites, Dick Dale and his Deltones released Let's Go Tripping.
Yes.
On his own record label, Deltone Records. And the single, which beats the release of Surfing by the Beach Boys by 2 months, becomes the first surf music hit. And unlike a lot of people cashed in on the surf music scene, Dick Dale was actually a really good surfer. He was known for that first.
Oh, wow. I actually didn't know I kind of figured he was a surfer. I didn't know
He was super good.
Wow.
Yeah. But when the sun went down, he applied himself to the guitar.
That's cool.
It's one of those things, when it's done well, it's spectacular.
Yeah. No, I love that stuff. And I love those tones, and I love just sort of that whole genre. It's so fun.
Because of his attitude.
I'm about to buy a baritone guitar, and we're about to go down this road,
awesome.
I've thought about that too.
Yeah. So that's going to happen.
I'll have a lot of fun with that. Because of all the albums he cranked out, and because of his sound, and just because of his sheer just tenacity. I mean, he's still the king of the surf guitar, at least in my mind.
Yeah. And Julie surfs too, man.
I love it. I can't. I'm about to. I'm drying out. I gotta go like right now.
Dragon Con or surfing, and
I'm not going to. No. I got a long weekend.
Goes to surfing. No. I mean, come on, Dragon Con. Come on. All right, I'm gonna drag you to one of these years. You too, man. We're gonna go. We're all gonna go. We're all gonna go to Dragon
September's
Con.
just a really good surfing month. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
No excuses.
I'll we'll have a Zoom meeting and play a game or something after I get out of the water. But 1966, Jim Morrison got arrested again. I mean, how many times did he get arrested? This time for kissing a girl, a 14-year-old girl. That was the preface. They released him for kissing a woman, but the charges are actually really just a way to get him into the police office to get to the bottom of a suspected murder charge.
Right.
That supposedly occurred 2 weeks before. So Jim went on a trip to the desert with a couple of friends, Felix Venable and Philolino. And they saw a pretty girl on the side of the road, and Jim stopped the car to go kiss her, I guess, and jumped back in the car. She was probably terrified.
I was going to say, if some man who I didn't know was Jim Morrison, even if it was Jim Morrison, I don't know, jumped out of a car on the side of the highway and kissed me, I don't know. I think I would have something possibly after that. I'm not sure how it would feel.
And she was only 14, which is why they were able to chase Jim down and call this a crime. It kind of would have ended there, though, if it had not been for the events that followed. After the drive-by kiss, I guess we'll call it, Morrison got into an unrelated just tiff or an argument that friends will have with his friend Alino, which actually prompted him to just bail on the road trip and disappear. Yeah. For reasons that only Morrison can really tell, which he won't. He started telling people that he killed his friend.
Yeah.
And buried him in the desert. Now, why you would say that, I'm really not sure. But, I mean, it was a road trip.
Dave has suggested the peyote days.
The peyote might be the reason why he would just say, oh, I murdered him. That's why he's not here.
Possible, man.
Don't say
I've
that.
been out
Don't
in the
say
desert
that.
with that. I mean,
so Philolino's father got wind of this, and he was a pretty big shot attorney back in California, and was obviously pretty upset. He wanted to know where his son was, and thought that Jim Morrison might be responsible. And from the other friend who had been in the car, he learned the story of the random girl who had been the subject of this drive-by kiss. Tracked her down and convinced her to press charges to find a reason to bring him in.
Jeez.
And so, by doing that, they tracked him in. The girl agreed, and they brought him in. And at that point, when only to find out that Jim Morrison was facing murder charges, he turned up. He just got mad and just decided to go lay low in Arizona. He wasn't murdered at all. He was just fine.
Ooh.
1970, Dr. Robert Moog unveils the Mini Moog, the synthesizer.
Oh, yeah.
One of the first portable synth keyboards that we had at a price of $2,000. It was pretty hefty then, but its size made it super popular. It was the first portable or easily portable synth that was made available.
Right.
And the American Federation of Musicians at this point actually opposed the instrument because they thought it would just put people out of a job. It was realistic, at least at the time.
Well, the keys itself put the space players out of a job sometimes in itself. So.
Well, they thought it was going to put the whole horn section out of work too. They thought lots of people weren't going to have a job.
I think a lot of people weren't going to have a job in general because of where we were going. But yeah.
Yeah. But the Mini Moog did become one of the first synths to take some major road trips with some big names, and Pink Floyd, the Talking Heads, yes, Dr. Dre, Trent Reznor, Gary Newman, they all love the Mini Moog still.
Yeah.
And you can actually, talking about tech that doesn't change because they did it right the first time. The B3 would be one. The Mini Moog is another. It's still manufactured in Asheville, North Carolina right now, and to its 1970 design, you can go buy one pretty much just like it today.
Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna say.
If it ain't broke, don't fix
used
it.
to be able to go by there and go visit, but I don't. Obviously with everything changing right now.
But you can still buy it. Well, you can order it.
You can still,
You can order it, and I'm sure they'll open their factory at some point again for you to go see it. But you can still buy one.
Yeah, very cool.
1975, Bob Dylan gave us Blood on the Tracks, which gave us Tangled Up in Blue. I think that's probably my favorite Bob Dylan song. Idiot Wind and Shelter from the Storm.
Okay.
That was his 15th studio album and marked his return to Columbia. He did a little hiatus with Asylum Records for a couple albums and came back. Interestingly enough, Jacob Dylan, his son of the Wildflowers, later called this album "The Sound of My Parents Talking," because of all the themes of breaking up and pain, and his dad pretty much wrote it about Jacob's mother, I think, and that's what he had to say about that. Interestingly enough,
and of course, all that sold recently. The entire thing.
Yeah.
Heard about that.
It's crazy, including recently the entire rights to the Black Album of Metallica sold this week.
Jeez.
The entire thing.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's very weird.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't put it in my report, but you guys can look it up. There's a whole thing where they sold the rights to the Black Album for Metallica. So there you go.
1977 gave us Jimmy Buffett, Changes in Latitude, Changes in Attitude, which gave us
guilty pleasure, by the way.
Margaritaville. I don't
Jimmy
hate
Buffett.
Jimmy.
People hate him, but that's my guilty pleasure.
I think my favorite is A Pirate Looks at 40, and it's probably Jack
yeah.
Johnson's cover, which we'll talk about in a second. It still comes in and out of the Billboard Hot 100 like all the freaking time.
Right.
Like it's probably it's in there right now.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
if you want to talk about an artist that is still in like the top charts and is kind of still relevant from then I think Bob Dylan's a lot of that too. Like I feel
Yes,
like he
timeless.
kind of embodies that whole idea.
Again, I mean, it's just a
But-
later version of Americana, just like Leadbelly. It never really
but it's
leaves.
just- and there's a whole thing, but he built this whole merchandising and Margaritaville,
A brand.
and this whole brand around it. So I think he was a little bit smarter in that he really, where I think Bob Dylan was not about obviously branding. It wasn't even on his mind or anything he wanted to do. So in some ways it's kind of crazy that a lot of what also people know Jimmy from is literally like his branding, what he's done, with that. And that's crazy, but that's how it is.
He's a smart man.
Yeah.
He's a very smart
it's
man.
a type of music too that appeals to the listener, I believe more so than it appeals to other musicians.
Right,
So
right.
if
I
you
don't
are
know. There's some fun bass lines in there that I wouldn't have expected them to quite go to those notes and runs. So I'll give them that. I mean, there's some stuff. But you ever watch them live, it's a fun thing to watch. I mean, it's a fun environment to be at. And I've seen Jimmy live once. and down in Key West actually, and that was
wow.
really cool.
It's not a bad place to be.
Yeah.
Good
And
cigars
it's
down there,
just
too.
again, you're enveloped in this environment, and it's this idea of Margaritaville and this whole like concept and culture, and it's a whole thing. But I got into it from my dad actually, who we would go to Siesta Key down to Sarasota Beach, and we would listen to Jimmy Buffett, and so it's like I always had those ties to it. But later on, playing a lot of this stuff, it's fun to play. I'll give them that. It's fun.
I
to
don't mind
play.
playing it. I don't mind
I
at all.
enjoy playing, but
Yeah.
as much as people love to hate on Jimmy Buffett, it's no. Come on, guys.
He knew what he was
You know
doing,
what I
that's for
mean?
sure.
Let's all be happy.
He absolutely
Let's
knew
all
what he
be
was
happy
doing.
and drink. I mean, I'm good with that.
I'll get behind that.
Get behind that. I don't know. You can be like 60 plus and still be selling records, man.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
behind that.
I
too.
should be so lucky in 30 years. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm
all
not
for
gonna
that.
out him for that.
Yep.
Well, on the other end of the spectrum, 1977 also gave us Animals from Pink Floyd. Total other end of the spectrum.
My.
And we actually talked about a little bit of the fun from the photo shoot album earlier in this year. Remember the giant 40-foot, 3-story pink pig escaping and scaring everybody in the
scaring
city.
the cows,
scaring
and
the
the
cows.
wouldn't give up their milk, and the farmer didn't do anything about it. Yeah, that whole thing.
Golly.
I don't know.
That was on the headlines for a while. I would
Yeah.
love
It's
love
2
to
weeks
see.
too, right? That thing was gone for 2 weeks, like floating all over the countryside.
It was MIA for a while before it landed in,
I mean,
in
how
a,
could
in
you
a
miss
faraway
that?
farm.
I
It
don't
was
know.
in the
I
stratosphere.
don't know.
It was in the
man.
stratosphere.
I don't know.
It looked really little
I
from
think that
down
was just
here.
simpler times. And simpler.
Well, they had some pilots looking for it, and they couldn't quite shoot the pig down, Big Pink. But anyway,
By the
so
way, that they hired somebody specifically. His job was to do that before it did that.
well, they told him to take the day off because he was standing around board the first day of the shoot, and it was the
goodness.
second day the pig got away, and they told him to stay home, so it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, but they could have had him come back out and shoot the pig.
It was long gone by then.
Still, I mean, you could still hire him back. I
And
don't
got
know.
away.
I don't know, but I think that's funny. I think that's hilarious.
Well, anyway, after all that work, that was just the photo shoot for the album, which they had to use from the first day because day number 2, Piggy went bye-bye. The album was actually released. Of course, that was a prog rock and concept album focusing on a lot of social and political conditions that were going on in the 70s in Britain at that time. And it was a big switch up from their earlier work. The band didn't release any singles from the album, and I've always kind of consumed the album as a whole myself,
right.
being somebody that likes Pink Floyd.
I think we're getting back to the concept album.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're definitely getting back to listening to a full album as it is, which is awesome. I still think there's that element of songs have to be under 3 minutes, and we're only going to consume them one song at a time, and you must keep putting songs out every single week or whatever the hell that is. I still think that exists, but I'm glad to see that there's this other resurgence. So
Of turning off your phone, putting on the turntable,
I
or
love
just
it.
Yeah.
however,
yeah,
and enjoying the
I
music.
think vinyl helped a little bit with that. Honestly, I mean that's.
But
my,
we actually
my
have a lot of
personal
vinyl
thing,
now.
so,
I mean, vinyl
you
sales are
Right.
bigger than they were. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, vinyl's broken a bunch of records, and we talked about this last week. And yeah, so crazy.
And so they actually promoted that album mostly through touring. And Roger Waters' agitation with audiences and the touring scene in general kind of made their next album, The Wall, which we can talk about here soon as well. Next year, 78 gave us Journey and their first album with Steve Perry.
Nice.
It was their 4th album. A lot of people don't realize that Journey was really just a prog rock band before they found Steve Perry. And Patiently was the first song that Steve Perry and Neil Schon wrote together. And of course,
Such a good song.
and that album also gave us Wheel in the Sky, too, my favorite.
Right. That is probably my favorite. Yeah,
That's
I
my
would say
favorite
I'm
Journey
a
song. I love playing that one. Let's play it. Let's
That's
cover
my
it.
favorite.
I'll do it. Let's do it.
All right, we'll do it.
Okay, we'll do
Next
it. I'll
open
do it.
mic. I'll
Next
learn
open
it.
mic.
We'll
Who's
just-
gonna
we'll
sing
roll
it?
this? Watch out.
I don't know.
I can sing Steve Perry.
If you step on my foot, I can do it.
Do it. I can do it.
79
Actually, I am very good at Journey. I can actually hit a lot of that stuff. So
with some practice, I'll back you up. But yeah, it's just
Separate
not
Ways,
easy.
Miles Apart.
Separate
is-
Ways.
Separate Ways is
my other
beautiful. Yeah.
favorite one. probably more so than Wheel in the Sky, I would say. Actually, Separate Ways is definitely. I saw that music video and I was just like, I don't know, that was it for me. I was sold, you know. And then a couple of tribute bands, of course, Departure here in Atlanta, one of the best Journey tribute bands,
They're really good
ever. I would say those boys are amazing. Made me kind of fall in love with a lot of the other stuff that they kind of put out. But that definitely Separate Ways was my first introduction to them, and then some of the earlier heavier stuff. Actually, I guess maybe it was probably pre-Steve, but I like some of the heavier stuff they did.
It's good.
You don't hear it very often, though.
No,
Very
you have
true.
to look for that.
You know, yeah.
79 gave us Neil Young and his self-titled solo album, which gave us The Loner, probably one of his most enduring.
Yep.
Did you know also it was just this week last year in 2020 that Neil Young became a U.S. citizen?
Oh man, really?
I believe that.
He decided to join us. I mean, welcome to the club. It's not the coolest club, but welcome, Neil, anyway, to the club. He's a Canadian by birth, and although he's lived in California since the 60s, he decided to become a citizen last year. So, welcome.
The story of him pulling into Sound City, being chased by the police, and the car billowing out smoke, and of course him having a Canadian passport and all. That's a rock and roll history story that one things you wouldn't believe today. But oh yeah, he pulled into the studio coming from Canada with police chasing him. That's going to happen.
Well, you know, I feel like he would do that. Totally.
It was this week in 1982 that Ozzy bit the head off of a bat. And so, by this point in 82, Ozzy had gotten into some pretty crazy stage antics practices, like throwing raw meat at people.
Right, and he didn't. I mean, you're probably going to talk about this.
Yeah.
But he didn't, obviously. He thought it was fake.
He thought it was
Did
fake.
he think he was fake? Y'all let me know whether you thought he thought
But I mean, I don't know if you've seen the footage. I wasn't alive in '82, so I don't know. But he got.
I'm sorry.
he got some and some pretty weird stuff for shows, and he would go by like meat processing plants and like just get the leftovers and throw like processed chicken, I don't even know what, at the audience. And of course
I did that to people in high school.
Of course,
it doesn't always go.
Of course, they would throw it back because I mean, turnabout's fair play, and it's only fun at this point, right? If you're gonna be covered in gross nastiness, you just have like a giant raw food fight, I guess. I don't know. And so a 17-year-old fan thought he'd bring some extra ammunition, knowing that Ozzy was gonna do this. I guess he found a dead bat and put it in his pocket and brought it in, and threw it at Ozzy. And Ozzy 100% thought it was fake because I mean, he didn't think anybody really had a bat in their pocket.
Jeez.
The bat was very much dead and a bit rancid, according to the 17-year-old who gave information after he threw it. Ozzy did not know this. He thought the bat bit him back when he because he had some a cut on his tongue, probably because he was just biting into real bones.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah.
He finished he finished the night and went to the hospital right after because he knew what he had did, I guess.
He got a bunch of rabies shots.
He had a bunch of rabies shots, and so like I've always been told if you come in contact with rabies, they're gonna give you this really scary shot in your belly. Well, this was 82. I guess you got the shots in the bum.
I was going to say it was in the bum back in the day.
Big needle, too.
Yeah.
Ozzy said he got a really big needle, one in each cheek, for 4 or 5 days in a row. He got a really big shot, one in each cheek.
It's pretty brutal.
And the left bum and the right bum for about a week. He really couldn't sit down. And so that's what happened with that.
That's that's still a more terrifying story than Alice Cooper's. Being from Detroit and just doing all of the crazy antics that he did, and somebody threw a live chicken on stage, and he didn't know what was going to happen, so he just picked it up and expected it to fly away, and of course it's a chicken, so it just went back into the audience, who the audience then ripped the thing apart and put and the next day the newspapers were all reporting, Alice Cooper bites head off chicken and drinks the blood and all this, and
he was like, no, it wasn't me.
Oh, help me out. Who's the famous California rocker with the big nose?
There's a couple.
And you're both going to kick me after I finally come up with it. But like the one who just would record and all of the time.
We're not talking about Milli Vanilli.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
No.
Not at all. Not definitely.
No, ma'am, no, sir.
But no.
We'll come back to
yeah.
it. We'll come back to it. What else you got there? We got
Same year in '82. I thought this was really cool of B.B. King. He donated his entire record collection to the University of Mississippi Center for the Study of Southern Culture. He had 20,000 records, and
by the way, Mark Cooks is Frank Zappa. Yep,
Yeah.
there you go. Yep,
he does have a big nose. I didn't know who to say.
That's it, Mark. Good job.
Thank you,
I was going
sweetie.
to be like, somebody on here is going to tell me in about 2 seconds.
Of course, Mark would
Yeah.
know.
Yep. All right.
Anyway, B.B. King donated 20,000 records to the Study of Southern Culture project from University of Mississippi. And of that 20,000, 7,000 of them included discs King aired as his time as a DJ at Memphis's WDIA in the 50s. They were super unique, some of them the only pressing ever made of that, which was a huge contribution, I think. To just give that away.
Was as big as his guitar sound. Oh yeah.
But we have a lot of things that never would have been had because he made that donation. So I mean, thank you. In hindsight, 83 gave us Pyromania by Def Leppard. And did you know that that's just a bunch of nonsense at the beginning? A lot of people want to know, what does that really mean? That Glunten Gleben, Glauten Globen, it means a whole bunch of nothing. Their producer, Mutt Lange, was of German descent and had done their previous album. And, of course, they loved his work and worked with him again. And he just wanted to just put something like that on the front of it.
Right.
And so, for fun, later, though, the band would sometimes tell people when they asked them in an interview, it was a lie. It was a fun lie. They would say it meant running through the forest silently.
What? Okay.
Running through the forest silently. It was something they made up.
Wow.
It meant absolutely
Wow.
nothing. It was gibberish.
Wow.
But they had a little bit of fun with that.
I will say, though, one of my favorite Def Leppard songs is Rock of Ages. I
Oh, yes.
absolutely love it. That's a great album. What a great album.
It is a great album.
Yes.
84 gave us Bon Jovi.
We're going to talk about Bon Jovi in a little bit.
We sure are. So let's
about selling saltine crackers.
let's talk about them now. We can talk about them later again.
Oh, goodness. Bon Jovi.
So actually, the single from the album was released 2 years prior. John Bon Jovi recorded some songs with a friend that he knew at a recording studio with some session musicians. And he brought it to the Apple, which is a Manhattan radio station where he lived. And the DJ really liked Runaway, and he played it. And the single started picking up a lot of attention around New York. And John quickly realized that he needed a band name, an album name, and he needed a band.
Why not go with your name?
And he needed it real quick, so he had to make some pretty fast executive decisions. And so Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
From
it's
John
a great
Bon Jovi.
name, though, man.
Yeah, it is.
Come on.
And his first guitar player was actually a New York native, Dave Sabo, of course, which later went to Skid Row.
Oh yeah.
Which was later replaced by Richie Sambora. Coming up real quick for him. 88 gave us Megadeth So Far So Good, which is a great album.
Yes.
It was a rough one because Dave Mustaine did it with a brand new bass player, guitar player, and a producer because people decided that they wanted to sell equipment for drugs and they got busted, so he had to strike out on his own. Sorry, he had to do it with new guitar player and new drummer. His only constant, of course, was Dave Ellison, his bass player. And he actually wrote Set the World Afire a lot prior to 1988 about getting kicked out of Metallica in 83.
Yeah.
He said when he was flying home from the whole incident.
Which we've talked about.
That's when he started
quite a
writing
bit
that.
About that whole thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Speaking of Skid Row, 89 brought us their first self-titled album. And 2 days later, they joined Bon Jovi because, of course, they were friends on the New Jersey Syndicate Tour. The album, which includes 18 Life and Youth Gone Wild, went over to sell like 5 million copies, so not bad there.
Oh yeah.
I love Skid Row. Oh.
And then just to round it out, a couple things in 2001, talking about the surf rock scene. In 2001, Jack Johnson gave us Brushfire Fairy Tales, and I'm super glad. I would just like to be Jack Johnson when I grow up and live in Hawaii and surf and play guitar all day.
Wouldn't we all?
Another surfer turned musician.
So if you want to donate to our surfer fund, let us know.
Well, why pick one when you can have both? Anyway, beautiful album. And then also 2001 was when Jason Newsted left Metallica after 15 years.
Yes.
I can't really imagine. A lot of that was wanting to work on his own project and James Hetfield said no, and then he said bye.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Marco leaving Nightwish after 25 years. I mean, it's just. I think now though is a different time and a different place with COVID and what it's kind of done. But it's crazy.
But I mean, Jason did some amazing work with Echo Brain. He did some amazing work in producing. He went and toured with Ozfest. And he also decided at the time, really, that he had to give his neck and back injuries a break because he acted like a lunatic on stage and just couldn't keep that up. Doctors have been telling him for 5, 6, 7 years, you need to stop that.
Right.
But he had branded himself with the stage presence, and he just needed another thing, I guess, is what he really said. And he said he never he misses Metallica, but he doesn't regret leaving either.
Yeah, for sure, man. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. All right, is that it? Is
Yes,
that all
ma'am.
we got? Class is over. You guys have been schooled.
One thing on Jason though, him picking up after Cliff Burton, that was such a. Everyone wanted that gig, and he wound up borrowing so much money. $5 from this person, $10 from that person, to be able to get to the audition. And they gave him the gig and said, "All right, you're hired as just a fill-in. We'll pay you $500 a week." He said, "I would have done it for a sandwich." But he really injured himself, and he mentioned talking later. Said, if I was playing a different kind of music, you can do.
Right.
Bill Wyman can play Stone stuff all the time, but it's so physical what he would do. It's so too aggressive for the body.
That's
Yep.
man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and it's crazy. Now we have a little bit also there's tech that has changed, as far as a lot of the equipment and stuff. But it's still one of the hardest jobs. I mean, you physically just do it, especially if you really do what he did. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. All right, well, we have already a pretty good episode. We've already rocked out for a pretty good long time, but we have at least 2 more segments to go through, so we're gonna fly through these. I'm actually gonna fly through this pretty quick,
but there's some good stuff in here. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, so I really want to get into this now. We don't typically get super political here on the Sonic Sphere podcast. I just don't think it's worth it. We're honestly, music is one race, one people, and sort of a uniting thing. And that's kind of what I always try to put out here as the Sonic Sphere podcast.
But music is a huge part of our society, and politics is
to
part
all
of that.
sorts of things. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to get in the political side of this, but I do want to mention that, I was watching the Inaugural concert. I wasn't even planning on it. I happened to stumble upon it. And, kind of just talking about some of the performances that happened on this. And I'm not alone. Again, obviously it's for the Biden-Harris inauguration. But however you swing, we still can talk about the music and the things that happened within that concert.
Absolutely.
I think it was interesting. The fact that either they were socially distanced and playing and recording in Nashville and down in Miami and all of these other places, which tells you a lot about where we are with music and COVID and social distancing. And I thought that was very eye-opening. But also that you could do this still and come out with something that was super inspirational. That was really cool for me, really to see this. The fact that we weren't literally in a concert hall witnessing all these artists playing. It was everywhere and everything in every kind of place. That was kind of cool, right? So to think about how far we've come, I don't know if we would have been able to do that if we hadn't built up the technology and sort of what had happened in the past year. So I think we need to stop and kind of recognize that we've come a long way. Now, is that to say I think we should always be there? No. I mean, I think we have to get back to in-person live concerts. There's something about that. But I did want to kind of talk about a couple things that kind of stood out with me. Did you guys end up watching it?
I sure did.
I missed it.
So Julie did. Okay.
I watched the whole thing.
You may have seen some of the memes that came out of it, obviously. We're going to talk about some of the
they're out
memes
there.
that
They're
came
great.
out of it. There's
They're glorious.
There's some glorious memes that I have laughed all week about, which has been amazing.
I've giggled more this week than I have in a while, actually.
I have. It's actually been really rewarding. All right. So, of course, one of the coolest things was, of course, Tom Hanks narrated the whole thing. And
he was the host.
Yeah,
basically.
he was the host, but it was like a story, which was kind of cool. He kind of told a story of sort of where America has been and what we're honoring and where we're going. So I love Tom Hanks. Definitely aged. God bless him. But
he's got a wonderful presence, though.
That
was a
really
great
cool,
host.
and he did it on the steps, and it's kind
of the
weird.
Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah, if you look at the Lincoln Memorial, if you look at this, there's literally 3 lights on him, and there is literally nobody anywhere around him when he's doing this. It's very interesting. You look out, you see some scenes where you see the lawn and you see the Lincoln Memorial, and there's literally nobody there. He is giving this through just what's going on online, very similar to sort of what we're doing with the podcast, which is kind of different. We're talking to an audience that we can't see and feel or hear. We can see your text, we can see your chats, but that was kind of different and cool. But he put on a good show, and he talked about it, about obviously hope and the sort of the themes of the campaign. But I did like how they kind of talked about, they put into a story narrative. It wasn't just like, well, here's Katy Perry, or here's Bruce Springsteen doing his blah, blah, blah version of whatever. So that was cool. I would say a couple other ones stood out for me. One of them was Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl.
I love Dave Grohl anyway, but
oh my goodness. So he did Times Like These. Mm-hmm. If you guys know, it was reminiscent of what he had already done on. I'm gonna look it up later.
And he dedicated it to educators.
Yeah,
all
so
over.
we kind of let me get to those notes. But but what I loved about it was literally the first entire part until the main riff at almost the end was just Dave Grohl singing with an organ playing in the background, holding out the notes.
And they didn't kick with the full band until the very end.
Yeah. It was for me that was amazing. Like, I'm not a huge Foo Fighters fan per se. I love Dave Grohl, though. I love whatever he does. I mean, this guy is on top of it. I want to be his age and still have that energy level that he puts out.
We will, Amy. We will. We just gotta take our vitamins.
Go Dave Grohl, man. Never stopping. They've never slowed down. We've talked about Foo Fighters throughout this entire quarantine period of the last year.
Because the man doesn't stop.
It has been crazy. They have done so much, not only for charity, but so much just to me, an inspiration to not only the music community, to artists out there, but also to supporting a lot of causes like Save Our Stage. Save Our Stages. So I mean, you just seriously, man, he's like, to me, like a Goliath. I don't know, it's crazy. But anyways, this gave me chills, for me at least. The performance of Times Like These. If you guys have not seen this, go online. You can find this on YouTube and a bunch of other places. Inspired me so much that I am going to also try to do kind of a cover of this and kind of try to pay tribute to this. I don't know if I can get close to Dave Grohl, but it just inspired me also for the Day and Times. I think that the song that they played and chose and how they did it was very a good choice for what we're trying to all go through. And again, no matter where you're coming from, this speaks to everybody. We're all humans. We all love music. We are all united by that.
At Times Like These was originally a post 9/11 song.
Right.
So of course it was one of those.
Yeah. Exactly.
You learn from the moment that you're in. And he definitely does.
And honestly, it's one of the few songs that I looked at the lyrics and I actually felt like I could really feel with those lyrics, that I could really relate to them and that they could relate to now, Day and Time. So be sure to go check that out. I felt like that was a good one. Also, I did miss Lady Gaga's Star Spangled Banner. I did miss that one, though. But I heard it later. I don't know if you did. You manage to see?
I saw it later actually because I didn't get off work until 8:30. Yeah,
yeah. But she was in this huge red dress. I mean, and of course doing.
It was
what
quite large.
Lady Gaga does best, which is big dresses and a big voice.
Fashion.
Fashion. So she did all that. I think the other big one for me, there's two ones. One was the New Rascals actually reunited.
The New Rascals, and actually the Black Pumas actually did an amazing show too. You saw that part,
right?
Out of Austin.
Yeah. No, Black Pumas. So we had a couple different, like I said, it was in different locations: Nashville, Austin, Miami, and a bunch of other places. And this is where, for me, with so now the New Rascals haven't been together for 20-some, or I'll have to look up the actual time that they haven't even been together, but they reunited specifically for this. Now, why? The song that they did, was one of Joe Biden's son, his number one song every time that when he was going through chemotherapy and he was basically dying of cancer.
It was Joe Biden's favorite song.
This was his favorite song, and he left it basically to his family, being like, "Do not be sad for me. I'm leaving you this legacy, and this is my favorite song." It was always a happy songs, and he kind of had the playlist. So it was kind of cool to see that. Like, they performed that for this whole entire event.
Which song was it?
That's what I'm looking up.
Oh, my apologies.
Of course, you're going to ask me. That's what I'm looking up. It wasn't that one. Let's see. No Shame. It wasn't that one. It wasn't that one. Oh, what was the one? I'm going to get this. We'll figure this out in a second. Let me look it up. But it's like their main song. It's their main, See, of course you're going to ask me, and then I'll be like, meh, you rascals. Of course we're going to look that up. I'm going to actually let you look that up. I'm going to let you look that up, Julie. What they played. Unless I can figure it out.
Actually, when you Google it, most people say that Joe Biden's favorite song was "Sky Full of Stars," Coldplay.
Now, I know Coldplay was one of his big ones. Again, this is like, there was kind of a, here it is right here. It was kind of a playlist that they were talking about for Bo, that he kind of would put on this playlist essentially when they would go visit him. Of course, now I got to read through this whole article. I thought I had it. Sorry, guys. We'll look it up in a second. I thought it was here, but I did not put that down.
Actually, Chris Martin performed at Joe Biden's funeral. That's how much
and now I have
he
no
loved
internet.
Coldplay.
Thus is my life.
Oh.
Yeah, this is not telling me anything, and it's not going back. Okay. 22 years. I was right. 22 years. And it was in the autobiography, and you get what you give. That's what it is. You get what you give.
Oh, the New
That's
Radicals,
what it
yes.
is. Yes, that's what John. Sorry, guys. I was like, I knew it was like longer. I knew it was a longer thing. Okay, you get what you give. So 22 years, they hadn't really ever gotten together. They finally kind of came together for this whole thing. So that was really cool, of course. And then I want to say there was a couple other ones, but the other big performance that stood out to me, of course, was Katy Perry's
The
fireworks. Obviously, that's a big hit, firework, and but the actual fireworks display that they put off was ridiculous. I mean, it literally the smoke.
I was scared for half a second that we were under attack. Like all I could see was explosions. I was like, it is just fireworks. That's good.
So many fireworks. It literally covered all the smoke, covered DC for a long time. There's so many fireworks. It was really cool. You guys can go back and look at those fireworks as well. Some of the things that were kind of, I think everybody did a good job. Of course, John Legend was on there. Justin Timberlake was on there. Demi, you remember that 80s song from Demi? That was cool. She was on there doing that. How about that? John Legend. Tim McGraw was on there. So the biggest, so that was it. Of course, we have Bon Jovi. He went on there.
And Here Comes the Sun.
And he did the Beatles cover, of course, Here Comes the Sun. And this was weird to me, like, even before kind of looking up all this stuff on it and what people have said and some of the response to this, was it was pre-recorded. And it was during sunset, which was kind of weird. It was kind of not working. And it was pre-recorded. So the entire...
They want to do it during daylight, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's that, but it was just kind of awkward, and a lot of people mentioned this. Also, they did the pre-recorded audio, overlaid it onto a video that they recorded, and that was pre-recorded and sent.
Oh, okay.
So it's very interesting. And there are, if you go on to, of course, Twitter, there's a lot of very interesting commentary.
I've seen it. I've been seeing it all week.
About this. I do love my favorite being that somebody said John Bon Jovi putting out strong Bay author vibes, who is Golden Girls. if you look at them side by side. Oh, poor Bon Jovi.
Oh, it's okay.
Another one said it looked like an ad for medication that helps you lower cholesterol. Not so good, but still Bon Jovi, looking kind of silver fox. All right.
But if I can go retire in Miami, I don't care at that point.
Yeah.
I don't care at that point.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was weird. It was kind of like, here comes the sun, and he just kept putting his hands out and just kind of, here comes the sun, 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 comes the sun. I don't know.
I suppose
it's all right.
Yeah.
I suppose that his vampire hunting days are behind him.
Possibly. I don't know. He was up at sundown and not like nighttime, so I don't know. So the biggest star that came out of this, of course, was Bernie Sanders with his damn mittens.
During the inauguration itself, so thousands of memes at this point, thousands of memes.
It's really ridiculous,
and some of them are really good.
Even Loudwire has gone to put him on the 30 most metal albums of all times, and has stuck him on some of those.
You know what he deserves? Funny. I mean, Bernie Sanders is basically a political rock star at this point.
It's pretty funny, yeah. So what the cool thing is that now he has put this on sweatshirts. You can purchase these sweatshirts.
And he's donating all of the money.
Yeah, so 100% of it is going towards the Vermont Meals on Wheels service. It's a service that basically delivers meals
to senior citizens who can't
people who are shut in,
get their groceries themselves.
Exactly. Right. So 100% of it's going out to that. So good for him for banking on that, but then turning it around and doing that. So I look forward to a lot more memes of this. This is definitely bright.
Make your own memes. Everybody's doing it.
It was pretty crazy. The photojournalist that took the photo, of course, is Samazowski. Of course, I'm going to butcher that one. And Braden Samalowski, yeah. And he's a Washington-based journalist, and he covers politics for wire service agents France per se. So he kind of did it, and he was like, I don't know, I was just kind of looking around for things to photograph in the moment.
And then look at this.
And so he took it. Of course, Sanders was asked about this later, and he said, I want to actually get this right because it was hilarious. So Sanders said that he had no idea that the photo would become the sensation. And he said, quote unquote, I was just sitting there trying to keep warm, trying to pay attention to what was going on. That was his... So, yeah. So you can't buy the mittens anymore. I have heard that they are sold out. So there you go. But these were made from old sweaters, basically knitted together and made these mittens. And she sold them to him or gave them to him quite a few years ago. And
his wife gave him
knew
those
that
mittens.
This was going to happen. All right. Yeah. Okay, so that's some of the interesting stuff. I definitely wanted to cover a little bit of that, but I also want to cover this, which is this whole Pearl Jam fiasco thing that's going on, which, kind of be aware, Pearl Jam sends a tribute band that's called Pearl Jam, Jamm. Jam, very close to Pearl Jam, obviously. They have a cease and desist letter that was sent to them. This is, of course, the tribute band's based out of UK. This was initially covered by BBC. And according to the legal paperwork sent on behalf of Pearl Jam, the tribute's name is, quote unquote, damaging the Pearl Jam brand and causing confusion, quote unquote, among fans. Their response to this was basically no one's ever come to a show. Got to the end of the show, came up to us and demanded money back because they were actually expecting to see Pearl Jam play. All right.
Spelled the wrong way.
So very interesting. Obviously, branding is important to bands. I mean, that's how they're going to make their money. I mean, it's super hard right now because you're not really on tour. You're not selling CD. There's it's a lot harder. You're not getting almost anything from digital streaming services. There's no distribution. I mean, it's very hard. So I can see that half of things. They did write a letter, obviously a very passionate letter to Pearl Jam, the tribute band, from the tribute band, and basically said, hey, if you had just come to us, we would have changed the name. But basically they were like, well, you know, Pearl Jam was like, nope, here's your letter. So very interesting, because usually, you know, Pearl Jam is kind of a band that's always sort of kind of for the people, and
very calm, very laid back, very understanding. I would say,
so it's very interesting. So since this, and of course this is an ongoing thing, the band has changed their name. The tribute band has changed their name to Legal Jam.
Very clever.
They're probably going to bank off of that, of course. But, you know, there it is. Yeah, they said basically, quote unquote, which we would be fitting, and we will continue to perform the music of Pearl Jam in the most heartfelt and authentic way.
Which is what most tributes do.
Yeah. So interesting, you know, and you know, whether a band is, you know, embracing a tribute band or not, you know, that's always a gray area. It's very weird. I do know, like, with El Scorcho, who's the Weezer tribute that we have here, Weezer literally tweets, you know, they're about their shows. And that is a great way to support each other. But on the other hand, you know, we've gotten cease and desist letters. So, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say, you know. But we'll see where this goes, because if it ends up in a court, or if they end up taking this further, I'm not sure. Of course, this is over in the UK.
Aye.
So we'll see. All right, so let's keep going. We got new music, and I'm just going to hit these a couple things. Number one, Bon Scott, of course. We're getting some of his long-lost tapes from more than 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
All right, so it's basically, this has never even really been heard either, some of this. And it is from his original band, and it's called Fraternity, right? So he was in a band called Fraternity originally. It's an Australian rock band, and it included like the early 1970s, basically. So that's what we're talking about. And that was formed in 1970, and this, of course, now predates Bon Scott with AC/DC later. They did 2 different albums, Livestock and then Flaming Goliath. So they put out 2 records. They've never actually been officially released. So kind of cool. They're going to be coming out with basically this whole thing called Seasons of Change. It's the complete recordings from 1970 to 1971. It's 3 albums of material from the Fraternity, including those 2 full albums, a collection of non-album singles, EP tracks, live recordings, and victory at a national battle of the bands in their hometown. So if you guys are Bon Scott fans, this is definitely something that you want to try to get your hands on. So that's
that
pretty
would be
cool.
Very lovely.
Yeah, Season of Change also features 18,000 words of sleeve notes and unseen photos of the band. So we got a lot of stuff going on there. All right. So next one is, if you guys are Metalocalypse fans, if you've seen obviously the art style of the episodes and the music style, so you guys might like something called The Hate Club. They debut basically a song called My Name is Legion. It's an entire story within the song, and the artwork is very inspired by Metalocalypse. Of course, Evan Streb of Evanimations is the one who is credited for doing this. He did the whole cartooning of the video, so you can watch it. It's really cool. It's this whole idea of like where the main characters are legionnaires, and they're going about their usual routines, such as like occult rituals, painting with blood and doing all this kind of crazy stuff. And then they must, they basically get they get drafted into this legion, and they must go on this journey and arrive at the army. And of course, they arrive at the destination, and you've got to watch the rest of it. So very cool. If you guys are Metalocalypse fans, which I am, go check it out because it's a lot of fun. It's cool songs, so go check it out. Definitely worth watching. Don't try to do both separately. Definitely watch them together. All right, so we talked about Children of Bodom, of course, Alexi. We just recently lost Alexi. So one of my favorite bass players, though, of course, is Children of Bodom's bass player Henry, which is that goes by Henry, but it's Hinka Blacksmith Sepalala, and I'm definitely butchering that completely. Anyway, so he has though put out. He's got a new band. He basically joined a new band. It's called Moonshot. So go check it out. They put out a new song, so you can go find this out. It's called Blood Looks Cool. So you can see all the lyrics, of course, as well.
Just like Seth's crayon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, blood looks cool. That would be a cool crayon color. So just kind of beware. This is pretty, like, really kind of different from Children of Bodom. To me, it's more Sabaton, almost, in some ways. It's a little bit more of it's not quite, it's still melodic death metal, but different in some ways. It's much more refined. Vocals is very operatic almost, but you can still hear a lot of the same elements in it, which keys are heavily in this band as well. All sorts of things, and tapping with the guitar. So there you go. And one of the things I always loved about this bass is, of course, he's amazing, has a lot of talent, but he also has always said, people have asked him, why does he never do a solo? And he said that's not the right time or place for it. And so in a lot of ways, like, to me, that's a lot of power and a lot of just knowing that your position, like, not saying bass players can never have solos, but he knows when to put stuff into the music and where.
Right.
So again, being a professional bassist, so love that guy though. So kind of when they asked him, jumping into a new band so quickly, it was kind of scary for him, of course. But he kind of, same time, he thought it was also a gift, being able to jump into a new band so quickly. So there we go. There's going to be a lot more from Moonshot, I'm sure. So check them out, especially if you like sort of the little bit more almost symphonic. I'm not sure to explain it. It's a little bit of the higher flying melodic death metal that you can find out there. So go check it out. And finally, of course, we have Weezer drop their final single from, actually the first single, the first song off of OK Human, which we've talked about. This one is interesting. It has no guitar. No guitar at all. It has cello, strings, an entire string section, and cello throughout the verses. Kind of reminds me, actually, a little bit of their song El Scorcho. In some ways. So to me, it kind of goes back to that. So very cool. So go check it out, of course. Rivers Cuomo spent most of his summer, of course, crafting these songs on piano. So there you go. It kind of is different in some ways, but it follows sort of this idea and this homage to Radiohead's OK Computer, which is kind of where they're kind of hats off to that. But it's only a name, only, of course, but influence. This is the 14th album. There was a 38-piece orchestra on the record, which we talked about, yeah. OK Human was made at a time when humans playing instruments was a thing of the past. And this was only used analog technology during this. Very interesting. And he said the band basically said that all we can do is look back at ancient times when humans really mattered and when dark technology takeover fantasies never existed.
That sounds lovely.
We used our instruments to connect to the 1960s and the 1970s, and with the orchestra back to the 18th and 19th centuries. We had no click track, there were no loops, no high-tech sounds, not even an electric guitar in this. So there you go. They're really throwing something a little different at us. So if you're Weezer fans, it's pretty cool. I've listened to that track and check out the music video as well. And it's interesting. It's different. Like I said, it reminds me a little bit of the El Scorcho, but more refined and a little bit more going on. with the orchestra, a little bit more involved with that, so that was cool. That drops on January 29th, guys, on Atlantic Records. You can pre-order your copies now, though, of course, and they are supposed to go on that Hella Mega Tour 2021. We'll see if it still happens or not, but it's supposed to, and that's along with Green Day and Fall Out Boy, so you guys might be seeing them.
Probably.
With Weezer.
Splendid.
And last time I checked, they were coming to Atlanta, so hopefully we'll keep you guys updated on that. All right, our final section. This we talked about, actually. I didn't even get to mention this at the very beginning because I think I skipped it for whatever reason, which is where we fast forward. We look at where music, culture, and humans collide with technology in the future. And one of the things that's interesting that came up that I wanted to talk about, which is we always talk about sort of how AI, artificial intelligence, plays a role in how we are writing music nowadays and how we're consuming things, and all of this, how it's a part of our lives almost, or it's going to become a big part of our lives, right? Whether we want it or not, love it or hate it, it's here. So Microsoft, our great overlords of Microsoft, they have come up with a patent that is aimed at trying to...
This is very eerie.
...relive or basically revitalize dead people. And it's almost a interactive chat that you have with these people that are dead. So it's an AI chatbot.
Okay.
All right. So let's get into this. So very interesting. It basically, they take all of the information about a person in order to sort of communicate with them even after they've died. So this is the idea of, again, kind of accumulating all of our information and our ways of talking right now, and we have the tech to basically have a video and you can put anybody's voices over it and it sounds exactly like that person, right? So you have that. Of course, the larger the footprint that somebody has, the more that this AI is going to be able to kind of portray you if you were to be gone. And your AI would be able to kind of pull that information off of the interwebs and create basically this entire images, voice data. This is all your images, voice data. So they can take your photos, they can take your voice data, social media posts. You can take your electronic messages, even like your voice itself, and they factor into this digital afterlife render. And it's both a multi-dimensional, so that's 2D and 3D models of those who are no longer with us.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So let that sink in. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. So it's expected to be achieved basically through both a voice and a chat command. The patent itself says that the specific person, quote unquote, or brackets, who the chatbot represents, may correspond to a past or present entity, parentheses, or a version thereof, such as a friend, relative, acquaintance, a celebrity, a fictional character, even, a historical character, or even you want to do like, random doors dating, a random entity altogether. All right. The specified person may also correspond to oneself, which is the user creating or training the bot. Yeah. So we possibly could have a virtual interaction on both a visual and audio level at some point. This is like a chat right now.
Jeez.
But it seems like it might be a little bit more where you could go talk to somebody that's already passed, or even, like I said, George Washington. I mean, if we have enough of his stuff, or like we can kind of figure that out, or somebody that died recently. If you want to go see Prince, I mean, we have a lot of his images and audio and whatnot. I mean, this could be very interesting. Is this? I mean, what do you guys think about this stuff? What do you think?
It's a fantastic idea, and would be a great, and please pardon me, a great and also extremely expensive high school project.
Yeah.
Because
it's Microsoft, so they can. I mean,
exceedingly expensive.
Pretty much do whatever they want, almost. Just scary and.
It's without going into annoying details, I would think off the top of my head, what it's doing is getting individual aspects of data. It wouldn't in any way be able to recreate a personality.
No.
Well, we're getting to that point, and so one of the tests of AI is whether they can go into a chat room with a bunch of humans, and whether the humans are going to know that this is an AI or a human chatting.
They're basically trying to achieve that person's blueprint,
so
if you will.
Once they get to the point where humans no longer recognize that this is an AI bot, that's when they've achieved humanity. So that's the goal. That's what they're working towards now in AI in general. So if we pair that with potentially this, obviously probably way out in the future, but might be closer than we think.
Aye. Well, with
it's interesting. It's a patent too.
Aye.
So that's kind of interesting that they're patenting the process.
With what you said of creating something new, we've become so detached in the sense of when you're conversing with someone only through a text message, because apparently phone calls are almost a thing of the past, or things like that. That it would be not too hard to imagine. Okay, if you give it certain speech patterns and all that to not necessarily recognize that I'm talking to a computer rather than a person. I can't imagine it being so difficult for them to have that. It would be much easier for it to be a entirely artificial person than to try to recreate someone, because at best, let's say it's if it's someone that we only know through historical records or something like that.
But what if it's somebody you lost like last year, and they have all the Facebook, and they have all the YouTube stuff, and they have all this stuff? I mean, don't you think people would want to try to resurrect that person to be able to talk to them?
That would be taking too far a leap away from reality. March of last year, a friend of mine passed away, who great drummer and wonderful friend, but any aspect I can go back and I can look at our chat history and things like that.
By the way, Charlie Crutch is on, and he says hi. And good to hear you, and good to see you, my fellow rock star over there, Charlie. Thank you for joining us at the very end, but that's okay. You can rewatch it, and of course it'll be back on Thursday, and you can watch everything we talked about earlier. We did mention you.
Aye.
We did mention you. So be sure to check it out. But I will definitely let him know. He said you're a good guy.
Charlie is a lovely fellow and fantastic musician as well.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that. All right, didn't mean to cut you off, did you?
Oh, no worries. But my point being, if you have someone that either you are close to, or a family member, or whatever, at best you're getting a facsimile of your own memories, rather than anything that you could interact. So it'd be just an extension of going back and looking at photos, or going back to old home movies. Yes, I am that old.
Right.
It's just a catalog, a very sophisticated catalog of things that have already been said and done of that person's persona at best, which could be comforting for some. It's kind of morbid to me. But
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. It was interesting, but then like when you really think about all the parts and the moving pieces and what impact it could have or where it could go, technology to me is always a double-edged sword in some
Very
ways.
much so.
So yeah, I think we're gonna leave that with people and let them kind of, we'll see what comes from that. Always try to talk about where, of course, tech is leading us, because we can't get away from that right now. I mean, we're pretty much tied to tech. Even music's tied to tech, so intricately So I hear all sorts of noises out there. So
I need to go check on that.
I think it's ready that we actually wrap it up for this episode of Sonic Sphere Podcast. We're already at 38. Appreciate you guys. The Beauty and the Beast of Bass. This was an awesome episode. Thank
Sure
you,
was.
Seth Hill.
Entirely my delight, dear.
It was awesome.
Excellent episode.
Julie Tew.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And of course, I am your host, Amy Epperly, also known as the Platinum Viking. I am done for the day. So we will catch you guys. Of course, this episode will be edited and out on YouTube and Facebook, and of course all your podcast host apps and everything that you like to get your favorite podcast from. Be sure to check us out there. Always, of course, we would love for you to subscribe, like, and follow. That lets us know that we're doing something fun and that you want to keep let us know that we want to keep doing this. So we appreciate all of you guys out there that have already subscribed and liked. This has been an amazing year. We're
so
almost
far so good.
Actually at our 1-year anniversary, which is crazy. And we might do something special for that. We have a big list of guests coming up for the rest of the month. And so be sure to check it out. I am sure if you guys want, let me know to get Seth back on the hot seat over here. And we will put him back through the Gauntlet of Fire, of course, as we always like to do. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the end of the night. You guys good? Any parting words of wisdom?
The only thing I'll say is if you are just going to enjoy music, there are no limits and no laws. And if you're going to be professional, just take it seriously. And you never know what can happen. The weirdest and I guess you could say best thing of my 2020 was getting to know a lady in Germany just via Facebook, and then being sent a track to record bass for someone that I have never physically met, and so I had to go into a studio and record a bass line, just create one and then send it off. And no sooner did that get done, and I'm like, oh, that was an interesting experience. Oh, I want to do it in English, so I need write lyrics. I've never written a song in my life, but I had to write English lyrics for someone else's song to fit established music. And that's,
never know.
You know, like you were saying about tech, it's just, how could we have
know.
done this 50 years ago? It wouldn't have been possible.
Right. Yep, exactly. All right, guys. Julie Tew, any parting words, anything for tonight for our peoples?
Same as always, just good night, be good to yourselves, and be good to each other, and we'll see you in a week.
There you go. We will see you guys next week, and as always say, rock on, rock stars out there. Be good, be kind, take care of each other. We'll see you at the top.